Chapter 240. Although Lu Jisheng and Qi Feng often complained that Guomin had made a lot of money during the bankruptcy of the original factory, despised that he liked to use his relatives to manage, despised that group of people who didn't know anything and still gave orders every day, but towards Guomin himself, the two of them were very grateful. This was because Guomin valued Lu Jisheng very much and gave him enough trust to let him display his skills without interference in the field of technology. This also allowed Lu Jisheng's father, who had been drifting for several years, to finally have a stable and generous income, which helped the Lu family out of the quagmire and into a well-off life. Okay, where is his home? Lu Qing came to his senses and asked. Lu Jisheng and Qi Feng would go to Guomin's house on holidays, but they always felt that it was not good to bring a child along. Lu Qing was happy and relaxed, and he was too lazy to go to a stranger's house to enjoy the discomfort, so he didn't know where Guomin's house was. Xing Chenggu didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "It's too troublesome to talk on the phone. I'll send you a text message. Lu, be careful. Protect yourself first." "Yes, Uncle Xing." After hanging up the phone, Lu Qing thought for a while and called Yanjika. He didn't have any experience in security, so of course he had to ask the omniscient Coach Yan. The cheerful ringtone rang for a few seconds before the phone was connected. Lu Qing unconsciously turned the words into concern. "Ku, have the police arrived at your house?" "Yes." Yanjika's eyebrows and eyes curved. She slightly pursed her lips and lowered her voice. "Stupid Cheng, you always worry for nothing. As long as Aunt Lu is here, it doesn't matter whether the police are here or not." Speaking of this, she thought of something and asked subconsciously, "How do you know about this?" After a pause, she said again, "Uncle Xing told you? He won't ask for your help, will he?" "How can he ask for your help? You're still a student. How can he do this?" Listening to the girl's suddenly raised voice, Lu Qing was surprised by her keen observation and deeply felt the strong worry and fear. He hurriedly said, "Don't worry. With the cooperation of 4 policemen who are good at shooting, as long as I am not killed by him in one shot, it won't be a problem to keep myself alive. Do you think I can't even withstand one shot from a professional 7th pin fighter?" Yanjika pouted and said sullenly, "Of course I believe in your strength. The gap between professional 7th pin and 8th pin is not as big as that between 8th pin and 9th pin, but it's still very dangerous. If there's danger, you can run by yourself, okay? No, you can't, and you can't leave your back to the enemy." Among the ranks of professions, the 9th to the 8th was a threshold, the 6th to the 5th was a threshold, and the 4th to the 3rd was known as the Dragon Gate, the carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. Listening to the girl's nagging, Lu Qing felt warm in his heart. He smiled and said, "Silly Ku, I have experience. Moreover, with my strength, if he dares to use continuous outbursts to kill me at all costs, then I dare to seize the opportunity to counterattack. I'll take care of myself for you." "Fine." Yanjika sighed. "You're a warrior, so it's inevitable that you'll be in trouble." "Qing, wait a minute. I'll ask around for you. What do you need to pay attention to? You don't have any experience." "Smart Coach Yan, that's why I'm calling you." Lu Qing complimented him with a smile. "Well, you're smart enough to ask me." Yanjika bit her lips and said, "I have an uncle who works in this field. I'll send you a message later. Take your time, okay?" "Got it. I'll do as you say, Coach Yan," Lu Qing said and hung up the phone. At this time, Director Xing had sent a message with Guomin's home address and the phone number of the police team contact, Niu Zhen. Lu Qing breathed in and out to adjust his mood. He directly put on the martial arts suit and shoes and planned to go there in this way. This was the most suitable suit for fighting. It was better to be prepared. Before leaving the room, he remembered his master and quickly called him. It was the first time he encountered such a thing, so he was still a little nervous. "Go, you have to experience something like this." Geezer Shi yawned and answered casually, "A real martial artist can't grow by just relying on the challenge tournament. There are some scenes and some gains that can't be fully understood without experiencing them. This is the case for my generation, Warrior Sage, Dragon King, and the rest. Your generation will be no exception." Lu Qing was slightly relieved and joked, "Master, aren't you afraid that something bad will happen to me? I'm not your father. Why should I worry about you? This is not a high-ranked Dan stage, not a fighter with physical invulnerability, but a professional 7th pin fighter who has been running away for so long. You have 4 gunmen with 4 guns. If you can be killed by him, I'll forget about having you as my disciple. Geezer mocked. You can't beat him, but I still think you can protect yourself. That's it. I have to hurry up and drink. My daughter and son-in-law are coming back. Hurry up and drink. Lu Qing suddenly felt that his life was worse than a jar of wine. He opened the door and walked into the living room. He said to Lu Jisheng, who was watching TV, Dad, Qin Rui asked me to practice with him, so I won't be back tonight. This kind of thing couldn't be said directly. He couldn't say that he had to work as a security guard at his boss' house, could he? That would scare his dad. You're still practicing at this late hour? Lu Jisheng stood up with the remote control and asked. The provincial youth tournament is at the end of the month. Lu Qing found a random reason. Lu Jisheng thought for a while and said, Cheng, I heard that some fighters are more indulgent and like to rely on their kung fu to mingle in society. You have to keep a distance from them. Dad, don't worry, I won't even look at them. Lu Qing smiled and replied. What I have to do now is much more dangerous than what they have to do. Unlike Qi Fang, Lu Jisheng didn't nag so much. He didn't say more after a few words of advice and watched his son leave. On the way to Guomin's house in the taxi, Lu Qing received a message from Yenjika. She gave him a long list of security precautions and lessons. In the end, she emphasized, Qing, you have to look very confident and calm. You look like a professional at first glance. In that kind of environment, everyone will be nervous and uncertain. When you can make a decision with confidence and firmly carry it out, they will subconsciously listen to you and won't dare to act rashly. This will save you a lot of trouble. Got it? Lu Qing replied. In the villa of the Guo family, 4 police officers had arrived, 2 men and 2 women. Guo Min and his wife brought their children, as well as their bodyguards and servants. There were 9 people in total. Guo Min used to be a fighter and started his business in iron ore. He had made a name for himself in the business world, and was doing very well. Now he was no longer as tough as before. Instead, he was fair and plump like a typical rich man. At this moment, although he had a bodyguard of professional 9th pin, Xie Tong, by his side, he was still nervous. He couldn't help but ask the police officer in front of him, Niu Zhen, Captain Niu, didn't Director Xing say that there would be a master in charge? When will he arrive? As a former fighter, he knew better than his wife, Wan Rongli, and his daughter, Guo Huairou, who helped to manage the business. Niu Zhen, who was transferred from the army, still had the temperament of a soldier. He stood straight and said, Mr. Guo, Director Xing just sent me a message saying that the master will be here soon. That's good, that's good. Guomin repeated. Dad, it's all your fault. Yesterday, I said that we would go to Gaofun for a vacation. Guo Huairou complained. She was 27 years old, with a good figure and ordinary facial features, which she compensated with makeup. After graduating from college, she helped her father to manage the family business. She was so busy that she forgot to solve the problem of marriage. In the end, her parents gave birth to a younger brother 2 years ago. She hated him but couldn't do anything about it. Guomin combed his hair and sighed. I didn't expect Zhang Ximing to come to Xiushan. As soon as he finished speaking, the doorbell rang. Everyone was silent, and their hearts beat faster. Guomin was the first to recover. He asked in surprise, Captain Niu, is the master here? Let me see. Niu Zhen turned around and strode to the door. Through the camera and visual screen, he saw a young man in a martial arts suit standing outside. Isn't he too young? Niu Zhen called Lu Qing according to the number sent by Director Xing. After confirming, he opened the door. As soon as the door opened, he took a step back and felt the vigorous qi, blood, and fierce temperament of Lu Qing. What a master! Born in the army, he had seen many martial artists at the peak of the body refining stage. He no longer doubted and reached out with a smile. Hello, I'm Niu Zhen. Director Xing should have mentioned me to you, right? Yes, I'll have to trouble you to cooperate with me tonight. Lu Qing responded politely. At this moment, Wan Rongli screamed. This is the master you were talking about? How old is he? I'm going to call Director Xing. Guohuiro nodded. She felt that this master was too young and unreliable. Guomin's martial arts had deteriorated, but his vision was not. He immediately reached out to stop her. Don't talk. He smiled and greeted Lu Cheng, who was in a white martial arts suit with black edges. Friend, how should I address you? We're counting on you to take charge of the situation tonight. Chang Jiu, who was at the peak of the body refining stage, plus Ye Tong, for policemen with large caliber pistols, barely enough, of course. Lu Cheng wouldn't reveal his name to avoid interfering with his plan. He nodded as a response, then looked around the living room. Mr. Guo, since Director Xing asked me to do this, I'll do my best to ensure your safety. I hope you can cooperate with me. Okay. Guomin was stunned at first, then nodded vigorously. Lu Cheng's expression turned serious. Tonight, everyone will sleep in the living room. Without permission, you're not allowed to leave the sight of the officers. How can we do that? Guohuiro blurted out. You're here to protect us, not to torture us. Lu Cheng said with a serious expression. Mr. Guo, you should know that climbing the second floor is like child's play for a dance stage expert. We're not as strong as you, so we won't split up to protect you. If you encounter Zhang Xuming in the bedroom on the second floor, even if we can detect it in time, he'll have enough time to kill you several times over. Guohuiro paused. But we still have to shower, right? One by one, we'll use the bathroom on the first floor. The ladies will shower first, and the 2 female officers will watch from inside. When it's the men's turn, the male officers will follow them. Make sure you're not alone. Lu Cheng's eyes were calm. Actually, I suggest you not to shower all day. Also, when you need to get the blankets and other things, don't rush in like a swarm of bees. Send a representative, protected by the officers and Mr. Guo's bodyguards. He gave out orders one by one, making Guomin and Guohuiro feel a sense of professionalism. Unconsciously, they followed his calm and confident attitude without arguing or throwing tantrums. After everything was done, everyone returned to the living room and settled down. Lu Cheng looked at the time and said to Niu Zhen, Yang Sha and the other police officers, from now on, you'll be divided into 2 groups. You'll rotate every 2 hours. Make sure you have a good rest. This is not an ordinary fugitive. Both physical and mental state are very important. You can't be careless. Okay. Niu Zhen nodded. Since Lu Cheng's arrival, he felt that he had a backbone and everything was in order. Although they were all good at shooting, they were not confident when facing a professional 7th pin expert. If there was no expert who could withstand 1 or 2 hits, they might not be able to hit him with only 4 guns. After listening to Lu Cheng's instructions, everyone looked at him, wondering what he would be responsible for. Lu Cheng walked to a chair and sat down. He closed his eyes and began to sleep. Sleep? Sleep. Guomin and the others opened their mouths wide and felt nervous again. Wasn't this professional and reliable expert a bit unreliable? After a while, they heard Lu Cheng's long breathing and sound sleep as if nothing had happened. The worry and nervousness in their hearts disappeared inexplicably, as if they felt a feeling called peace of mind. That guy might not care about their lives, but he definitely wouldn't joke about his own life. He dared to sleep directly without any vigilance, so he must have confidence and certainty. Everything seemed to be under his control. Influenced by Lu Cheng's calmness, they were less nervous and no longer secretly panicked. Wan Rongli and Guohuiro even felt sleepy. They curled up on the sofa and fell into a light sleep. In Yan's villa with professional guidance, they also gathered in the living room. It was easier to protect them by not sleeping separately. In the presence of outsiders, Yanjeka did not wear a nightgown, but directly put on a martial arts suit. She curled up her legs and covered herself with a blanket, lying on the sofa on one side. She was worried about the idiot who was not here, so she could not fall asleep. Logically speaking, with her fearless character, under the premise of Lu Xiaolan's protection and 4 policemen's vigilance in each corner, she should be able to sleep peacefully as usual as if nothing had happened. But now she held the phone tightly, not only wanting to hear it ring, but also afraid to hear it ring. At around 2 o'clock in the morning, except for Niu Zhen, Yang Sha, and Guomin's bodyguard, Xie Tong, who were on duty in Guo's living room, the others were either asleep or drowsy. The surroundings were slow and quiet, and even the sound of insects could be heard. At this moment, Lu Cheng, who was in deep sleep, suddenly felt his heart palpitate. He opened his eyes and felt some kind of evil approaching. In that direction, he suddenly stood up, adjusted his muscles, and was in the most suitable state for fighting in an instant. Then he looked at the left window of the living room and said in a low voice, "He's here." "He's here?" Niu Zhen and Yang Sha were shocked. Out of professional habit, they instinctively took out their pistols and dodged to the side, not huddling together so that they could cross fire. "He's here?" The other two policemen who were resting suddenly woke up. Although they were half a beat slower, they still skillfully got off the sofa and occupied a corner, blocking the window with their guns. "He's here?" Xie Tong was at a loss at first, but then he was cautious and got into position. "He's here." Guomin's face turned pale. His hands grasped the blanket tightly, and he unconsciously leaned toward Xie Tong. "He's here." Wan Rongli, Guo Huairou, and the others were awakened by the noise. They were shocked and scared, but they didn't dare to make a sound. They huddled together, holding each other's arms, and shivered. That maniac had really come? What should we do? What should we do? Outside the window of the living room, a black shadow had just approached. He sensed that the originally quiet target had suddenly come to life. The atmosphere was instantly tense, ready to explode at any moment. He immediately felt a tingling sensation on the surface of his body, and understood that it was the absolute reaction of being targeted by a dangerous gun. Shocked, he quietly took a few steps back and faced off in silence. Waves surged. After a few seconds, he realized that the person inside was still on guard. He immediately realized that the other party didn't notice it by accident. The invisible forces collided. The black shadow hesitated for a moment. Seeing that there was no chance, he decisively and quietly retreated from the area. At the same time, he whispered to himself, "The supernatural ability of prophecy?" In the living room of the Guo family, the inexplicable feeling was gradually fading away, and was no longer under his control. But at the last moment, he sensed the departure of the malicious intent. He closed his eyes and entered a meditative state. He tried to imitate the scene of deep sleep to use the sensing ability of the Jindan. But with his spirit and thoughts still intact, he could only faintly use a little. He couldn't use the absolute reaction from a distance like when he was in deep sleep. But no matter what, he was sure that the malicious intent had completely left the area. At this moment, Niu Zhen and the others were staring at the window. The atmosphere was so tense that it was about to snap. At this moment, even if a mouse jumped out, it would probably die without a burial place under their concentrated fire. However, they still couldn't find any trace of Zhang Xuming. In this atmosphere, Lu Qing put away his arrogance and said as if nothing had happened, "He's gone." "He's gone?" Guomin, Niu Zhen, and the others were confused and almost didn't react. Zhang Xuming left before he even showed up? Is this for real? Immediately after, they all had the same thought called anger. Are you King kidding me? You startled everyone for no reason, made everyone aim at the window for a long time, and be on guard for a long time. And now you're telling us that nothing's wrong? That lunatic who destroyed the whole family came all the way here, and left before he even entered the door? Could it be that he misjudged and overreacted? In the midst of these thoughts, Guo Huairou and the others would have lashed out at him if they didn't consider that Lu Cheng was the backbone of tonight, and that the situation would be more dangerous without him. They had no choice but to swallow their anger and go back to their seats. Lu Cheng looked calm and said to Niu Zhen calmly, "Call Director Xing and tell him that Zhang Xuming was here. Ask him to pay attention to the nearby families." But we didn't find anything." Niu Zhen couldn't help but retort. Lu Qing looked at him calmly and said, "Just report it as it is. He will make his own judgment. You don't have to help him make the decision." Niu Zhen thought about it, and decided to report it to Director Xing just in case. The other side only replied briefly, "I got it." At this time, they saw Lu Qing sitting down on the ground and sending a few messages before falling asleep again. Sleeping. Guo Min and the others were numb, and even a little desperate. Yan Zhika tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. Everyone thought that she was a timid girl who couldn't sleep because of fear, so they all comforted her. Suddenly, the phone in her hand rang, which almost made her heart stop beating. She hurriedly picked it up and saw that it was from Lucheng. Zhang Xuming was here, but we scared him away. He should be fine now. Phew. Yanjika heaved a long sigh of relief and said with fear and joy, "Are you hurt? Don't be careless. What if he comes back?" "No, he ran away when he found that we were heavily guarded. Coach Yen, don't worry. I won't be careless. I will be on guard as usual and inform Uncle Xinghe. Why are you still awake?" Lucheng replied. Yanjika pursed her lips and snorted secretly. "I didn't sleep well. I woke up as soon as there was a sound. It's all because of you, idiot." At 5 o'clock in the morning, Lucheng woke up again because his phone was vibrating. He took it out and saw that it was from Director Xing. As soon as he picked it up, he heard the undisguised laughter on the other side. "Little Lu, you have a safe night. You've made it through. The task force has arrived. That high-ranked dance stage expert has caught Zhang Xuming's tail. He can't do anything now. You can go back and have a good rest. See you in court in the afternoon." "Okay." Lucheng heaved a sigh of relief and quickly shared the news with Yanjika. Yanjika was finally relieved. Her eyelids started to fight, but she persisted and replied, "Well, Chung, I'm so sleepy. I'll sleep for a while and train in the afternoon." "I slept well. I'll continue training later. Good night, no good morning," Lucheng said with a smile. Then he put away his phone and looked around the living room. No longer serious, he smiled and said, "The alarm has been lifted. You can do what you need to do." After he finished speaking, he didn't stay any longer. He took a big step forward, opened the door and left. After a moment of silence in the living room, Guohuiro couldn't help but complain. "Captain Niu, what kind of expert did you find? Why is he so useless?" "That's right. Why are you so worried? I have to tell your bureau chief Xing." Wan Rongli twisted her sore neck. Guomin also smiled and said, "It's okay. We don't have enough manpower. That's understandable. Just let it pass safely." It wasn't convenient for Niu Zhen to respond to their complaints, and he hadn't received the next order yet. He could only listen to the Guo family's words with Yang Sha and the others. After a few minutes, he received a notice to open the window in the living room. Open the window in the living room? Niu Zhen was confused by this strange order. He went to the window and opened it. He found that there were a few unfamiliar men in police uniforms outside. They were carefully inspecting something under the light of the street lamps. "What's wrong?" Niu Zhen asked in confusion. Guomin, Guohuiro, and the others also squeezed in curiously. The leading unfamiliar policeman was very dignified. He frowned and muttered, "Zhang Xuming has been here for at least a minute." But he didn't do anything. Zhang Xuming has been here for at least a minute? Zhang Xuming was really here. He even stayed for a minute. Niu Zhen's mouth opened little by little. He looked at Guomin, Guohuiro, and the others in shock, only to find that they were also at a loss and frightened. Hiss. After a short while, gasps sounded one after another. Chapter 241. At this moment, two images flashed through the minds of Guomin, Guohuiro, and the others. The young man in a white martial arts suit with black edges solemnly but calmly shouting, "He's here," at the calm window, and the casual "He's gone" sentence. "He's here, he's gone." It's actually true. Everyone by the window turned their heads and subconsciously looked at the door. The image of the young man in a white martial arts suit with black edges drifted into their minds. A true master never shows his true colors. Guomin sighed after a long time. Guohuiro also took a deep breath, and the words "expert style" appeared in her mind. "Captain Niu, do you know the name of that guy?" Guomin asked curiously. Niu Zhen shook his head with a blank face. "Director Xing only gave me his phone number. The head of the dragon but not the tail." During morning training, Lucheng took the medicine soup step by step. He practiced the fine inner workings and polished his force. At the end, he borrowed the Jindan again to try and understand the feeling of withdrawing. Once again, he gained a different experience from the previous day. Every new day, every new day. After breakfast, he came to the martial arts center. After half an hour in the strength training gym, Lucheng saw Wu Ting yawning with dark circles under her eyes. Coach Lu, I was so scared that I couldn't sleep well last night. You should know that. Can you reduce the amount of training later? Wu Ting asked pitifully. Lu Qing looked at the other students and smiled. I know. Reduce the amount of training today by 2/3. When you're free, help me watch them and correct their movements. Teaching and learning were mutually beneficial. Okay. Wu Ting didn't expect that not only would she succeed in her request today, but she would also be assigned the task of little teacher. She was very excited and happy. When the training was about to start, she came back to her senses and asked in confusion. Coach Lu, you were invited too, right? Why are you still so energetic? The protector must be more tired than the protector. She didn't sleep well last night, but Coach Lu probably didn't sleep at all. I was invited, Lu Qing answered with a smile. But I slept the whole night. You're lying, coach. Wu Ting laughed in disbelief. Yao Ruiwei, Zhang Qiufan, and the other students looked at them in confusion, unable to understand the content of their conversation. They planned to ask Wu Ting during the break. What happened last night? At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Qing left Gushan Martial Arts School after another round of training. He turned to a nearby crossroad and boarded Xing Chengwu's SUV. Lu, yours. Xing Chengwu handed over a bulging envelope. Uncle Xing, what is this? Lu Qing asked in confusion. Xing Chengwu smiled. Don't refuse the reward for last night. It was given by the country, not me. Due to the high level of danger, the reward was considered generous. Lu Qing pinched the thickness of the envelope and estimated that it was about 8 to 10,000 yuan. For a top professional 9th pin fighter, the price for a night's security was indeed crazy. But considering that the enemy was a professional 7th pin fighter of the Dan stage, it was reasonable. Why should he be modest when he had risked his life for the money? Lu Qing calmly opened the envelope and took out the bright red banknotes. He took a picture with his phone and sent it to Yan Zhika, who was training in the afternoon. I'm earning money from the country. Although they couldn't chat in time, he always wanted to share with his girlfriend. Director Xing understood the young people's habit of taking pictures. Without saying anything, he started the car and drove to the courthouse in the east of the city. After driving for a while, he asked casually, Lu, how did you scare Zhang Xuming away last night? He stayed outside the window for at least a minute. Niuzhen didn't say it clearly. Uncle Xing, do you know the ice sex enemy heart-freezing move? Lu Qing was quite mature in dealing with matters. He had long guessed that he would encounter such a question, so he calmly replied with a question. Yes. Xing Chengwu seemed to understand. You've mastered the martial arts derived from it? Lu Qing smiled bitterly. Lu Qing laughed bitterly. I can't say that I've mastered it. I can't use it during a fight. I can only barely use it when I've completely entered meditation. Last night, I used it to vaguely detect Zhang Xuming's approach and notified everyone to prepare in advance. This probably made Zhang Xuming feel that he didn't have a chance, so he retreated on his own. Uncle Xing, please don't tell others about this. Okay, I understand. No wonder Niuzhen said you were sleeping. Haha, the younger generation will surpass us in time. Director Xing shook his head and laughed. He changed the topic. Lu, you didn't tell Guomin your name last night? Lu Qing was stunned for a moment, then suddenly realized. Uncle Xing, you know? He knew Guomin was his father's boss, so he made the necessary arrangements. Professional habit, professional habit. Director Xing laughed. Your master asked me to take care of you. If I don't even know the general situation of your family, how can I take care of you? But you don't seem to be willing to reveal your identity in front of Guomin. I just feel that there's no need to mention it deliberately. It would be awkward. Also, if Boss Guo and the rest knew about this, I wouldn't be able to command them. Lu Qing answered honestly. That's true. Xing Chengwu laughed. Luckily, I only gave Niuzhen your number and didn't mention your identity. I thought you would tell him yourself if you were willing. Lu Qing was stunned. When he thought about it carefully, he realized how smooth and experienced Director Xing was. No matter how he looked at it, it was flawless. A real veteran. 10 minutes later, Xing Chengwu drove into the courthouse and parked beside the back building where there was no one around. As soon as he got out of the car, He led Lu Qing straight into the building. They went through a special elevator and arrived at the 4th floor. Along the way, he had arranged for no one to wait. Let's go in. There are no outsiders. Xing Chenggu pointed to a room at the end of the corridor. Lu Qing suddenly remembered Wang Su's fate. His heart couldn't help but feel heavy. He sighed subconsciously. Don't worry too much. Honestly, Wang Su won't be sentenced too heavily. Xing Chenggu patted him on the shoulder. Lu Qing nodded slightly. He knocked on the door and waited for a moment before pushing it open. The process of testifying was similar to what he had expected. There were no bystanders, only the necessary judges. Through the guidance of questions, they made him repeat the process from beginning to end. Lu Qing kept in mind that Director Xing had asked him to rush over to stop the crime. As for the rest, he didn't hide anything. After an unknown amount of time, he finally heard the sound of the door opening. When he left the room, the first thing he saw was the bright afternoon sun in July. In the process of silently following Xing Chenggu back to the SUV, Lu Qing glanced at Wang Su's parents who had come for the trial. They looked much older than half a year ago. Although they were about the same age as his parents, they looked like they were almost 60 years old. Sigh. Lu Qing sighed and leaned against the back of the passenger seat. He asked earnestly, Uncle Xing, can we leave after a while? Sure. Xing Chenggu didn't say much. He took out his phone and started to deal with official business. In the blowing of the air conditioner, Lu Cheng's thoughts fluctuated. He couldn't calm down for a long time. Right now, Wang Su was only 1 or 2 walls away from him. However, their fates seemed to have been fixed on today's bright sun and the dim mist of the first day of the new year. This is life. Time ticked by. Xing Chenggu received a call. He smiled and said to Lu Qing, the sentence is 5 years in court. That's good. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. I'll find someone to watch him in prison. If he behaves well, he should be out in 3 years. He'll be only 22 or 23 years old then. There's still a lot to be done. Xing Chenggu started the car. Thank you, Uncle Xing. Lu Qing thanked him sincerely. Xing Chenggu laughed and said, What are you thanking me for? It's almost dinner time. Come to my house. I didn't treat you last time. Okay. Lu Qing didn't refuse, nor did he mention Xing Jingjing. He just called his father and told him that he would be back after dinner. Don't touch the pot that doesn't boil. Xing Chenggu had already arranged everything. After the call, he went straight to South Zhuangyuan Street. When he led Lu Qing into the house, the food was almost ready. Mom, they're here. Dinner is ready. The tall Xing Jingjing tied up her hair and shouted to the kitchen. Lu Qing changed his shoes and politely said, Hello, senior sister. At the same time, Xing Chenggu placed his majestic body between the two of them, trying to ease his daughter's emotions as much as possible. Xing Jingjing looked at Lu Qing and didn't feel as impatient and uneasy as last time. She just said coldly, Ko has mentioned you to me. That's good, that's good. Lu Qing didn't know what he was saying. Is this the preferential treatment of a best friend's boyfriend? Seeing that his daughter didn't have a big reaction, Xing Chenggu secretly felt relieved and hurriedly asked her to help serve the dishes. It was not that he didn't want to do something, but he felt that if he left his daughter alone with Lu Qing, the harmonious and stable atmosphere would explode. Not long after, dinner started. Director Xing's wife, Auntie Ding, was very warm to Lu Qing. She asked him all kinds of questions and praised him. Xing Jingjing ate quietly. When the atmosphere was at its warmest, she said faintly, He has a girlfriend. How do you know? Auntie Ding was stunned at first, and then asked in confusion. When did this girl become so close to Lu? Lu Qing was startled. He was afraid that this girl would be unhappy and reveal the matter between him and Ku. Xing Jingjing said with a straight face, Ku said so. Lu Cheng's heart suddenly jumped. Then he heard Xing Jingjing add, They are classmates. I see. Xing Chenggu and Auntie Ding didn't know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. At this moment, the doorbell rang and the sound echoed in the room. Who is it? Xing Chenggu was used to unexpected visits. He shook his head and walked to the door. Lu Qing subconsciously looked over. When the door opened, he saw 2 familiar figures. His father's childhood friend Zhao Zijuan, whom he had met a few days ago, and his wife Huang Kun. He was the deputy director of the police station. It was normal for him to visit Uncle Xing. Lu Qing looked back thoughtfully. Zhao Zijuan looked inside and said with a smile, "What a coincidence. Director Xing, are you eating?" "What do you mean by coincidence?" "Old Zhao, let's eat together." Director Xing greeted them warmly. Zhao Zijuan's eyes swept across the table. Just as he was about to speak, his pupils suddenly constricted as a certain figure was reflected in his eyes. He almost forgot what he was going to say. Only when his wife, Huang Kun, pulled him did he wake up. He smiled and said, "No need, no need. We have already eaten. I just thought that it has been a long time since I came to visit you, old leader. Just sit for a while and leave." "Haha, it's good that you didn't forget your old leader." Xing Chenggu wanted to lead them to the sofa and sit down, but he saw Zhao Zijuan carrying something. He said with a straight face, "Old Zhao, what do you mean by this?" Director Xing was so intimidating that Zhao Zijuan didn't know what to say. Xing Chengwu's expression softened. "Old Zhao, take these things back. I know about your situation. You're my old subordinate. I'll definitely fight for you." Yes, Director Xing, Zhao Zijuan and Huang Kun didn't dare to stay for long. They immediately left. Xing Chenggu didn't ask them to stay. He watched them leave and then returned to the table. He smiled bitterly. "The director of Flying Cloud Road has retired. Old Zhao has some ideas. When I was at the branch, he followed me for a few years. He's quite capable. Why wouldn't I consider him?" Lu Qing smiled and didn't say anything. After leaving Director Xing's house, Huang Kun looked at the things in her hands and asked nervously, "Old Zhao, that's it?" "Yes, Director Xing always keeps his word. Since he said so, he'll definitely do it." Zhao Zijuan thought about the figure he just saw. He frowned and asked, "Did you see the person who was eating with Director Xing's family?" "I didn't dare to look carefully." Huang Kun shook her head. Zhao Zijuan took a breath. "It should be Lu Jisheng's son. Why was he at Director Xing's house? And at this kind of family dinner?" Chapter 242. Huang Kun opened her eyes wide. This was a relationship that couldn't be connected at all. Zhao Zijuan was still frowning. "Yes, I'm not wrong. Their relationship must be special if they can attend this kind of family dinner. Lu Jisheng knows how to set up an ambush? What are you talking about? You don't have to have a close relationship with Director Xing's family. Didn't we eat together before? What if he's Jingjing's classmate?" Huang Kun guessed. "That makes sense." Zhao Zijuan stepped into the elevator and said after a moment of silence, "But the more I think about it, the more I feel that Lu Jisheng's son is very spirited. I'll look into his information tomorrow." When he returned home at night, the mysterious master in Bosqua's mind accepted the education obediently. Qifeng nagged, "Look at you. It's only been a few days and you still don't come home to sleep or eat." After 5 minutes, Lu Qing found a chance to interrupt. "Mom, here's the thing. Didn't I become the disciple of the martial arts club's coach? He has a friend in Xioshan who has been taking care of me. How can I refuse when an elder invites me to dinner?" Since Geezer sure officially recognized him as a disciple, he had briefly mentioned it to his parents. He didn't tell them his master's strength, but only said that he was very powerful. "Really?" Qifeng was doubtful. "Why would I lie to you? Why don't I give you his number, and you can call him yourself?" Lu Qing answered frankly, but in his heart he complained that if his mom really wanted his number he would tell her it was 1108 and ask for Director Xing. Well, Cheng is a grown-up. It's normal for him to have his own connections. Why do you ask so much? Lu Jisheng stopped Qifeng from asking. Qifeng glared at him. "What's wrong with me caring about my son? I don't need you to teach me. You don't care about anything. You don't ask about anything. You only care about eating and playing chess." Seeing that the fire had turned to his dad, Lu Qing spread out his hands and put on a helpless expression. He quietly slipped back to his room. In the next 2 days, he went to Ningxue and spent 2 days with his grandparents in the countryside, showing off all kinds of fruit trees to Yanjika. On Monday, he went to work on time and guided the training of Wu Ting, Zhang Qiufan and the other students. He also promised to leave some time for actual combat practice on Wednesday. On Tuesday morning, the day before Empress Dowager returned from a business trip, Lu Qing finally got the chance to train with his girlfriend after Zhang Xuming was shot dead in the border mountains. The two of them were in a secluded corner of Backwater Lake Park. As usual, most of the time, they were serious and focused. Occasionally, their eyes would meet, sweet and warm. Under such circumstances, Lu Qing would always think of the beautiful future he had hoped for. The more he trained, the more his force penetrated. He didn't try to withdraw in front of Yenjika. He wanted to surprise her only when he could do it without the help of the Jindan. Otherwise he would feel guilty and fake. In the blink of an eye, it was almost 8 o'clock. Yenjika put away her posture and panted, showing her dimples. "Chung, what are we going to eat for breakfast?" She was in high spirits and full of anticipation. Lu Qing had already made plans. He smiled and said, "Let's go to the Cloudwater realm you mentioned before?" "Okay, I'll take you there." Yenjika smiled sweetly. Lu Qing seized the opportunity and asked, "Ku, your parents are not at home. Is there anyone at home?" "No, my mom doesn't like outsiders at home. The cook and cleaning ants come at 11 o'clock and leave before dinner." Yenjika looked up and spat. "Why do you ask? What do you want to do?" "You said you would show me your childhood photos. It's a rare opportunity." Lu Qing answered with a smile. Yenjika rolled her eyes and snorted. "You haven't shown me your photos yet. You can show me mine at any time. My parents have regular working hours, unlike Empress Dowager." Lu Qing tried to bewitch the girl. Yenjika puffed up her cheeks and glanced at her boyfriend. "Okay, then let's go to my house after Cloudwater Realm." In fact, she also wanted to share her childhood photos with Lu Qing. She wanted to hear him praise her childhood. Lu Qing was excited and told her his plan. "I'll take a shower at home and change my clothes. That's troublesome." Yenjika pursed her lips and thought for a while. "How about you come to my house?" "But I don't have a change of clothes." Lu Qing asked eagerly. Yenjika chuckled. "Stupid. You can wear my dad's old pajamas first. I'll put your martial arts suit in the washing machine. It'll be dry before noon." As for the surveillance camera at home, she would delete it after Qing left. "Okay." Lu Qing didn't stand on ceremony at all, and agreed decisively. After that, he came up with a new idea. He asked with a smile, "Could you have cold rice and eggs at home?" "I think so. Auntie will clean them up at noon." Yenjika answered with uncertainty. Lu Qing suggested, "How about we don't go to Cloudwater Realm? I'll make egg fried rice for you." "You know how to make it?" Yenjika asked with surprise and suspicion. "Don't make some dark cuisine." "Of course. I only know how to make egg fried rice and noodles. I'm good at it." Lu Qing waved his arm deliberately. Yenjika bit her lips and said with bright eyes, "Then I'll look forward to it." Hee, egg fried rice made by Chung with love. After that, they jogged back to the villa area. Lu Qing looked at the entrance control and the security guards and observed the surrounding walls. He said seriously, "I'll find a blind spot and climb over it." If he and Ku went through the entrance control together, his father-in-law would know at night. And such a wall couldn't stop him at all. Yenjika blinked her long eyelashes and looked at Lu Qing blankly. She didn't seem to understand why he did that. After a few seconds, the girl came to her senses and burst into laughter. "Oh Qing, you're so funny. Haha, my stomach hurts. Haha, you want to climb over the wall? What's wrong with that?" Lu Qing was confused. Yenjika managed to hold back her laughter and scolded him with her eyes full of tears. "What a joke. Idiot Chung." After that, she took out the key ring with the access card and handed it to Lu Qing. "Here you go." "What about you?" Lu Qing asked in surprise. Yenjika pursed her lips and answered seriously, "Swipe my face." She asked Lu Qing to wait on the other side of the road and walk to the security booth with light steps. She smiled shyly and said, "Can you open the door for me? I forgot to bring the access card." The security guard had a deep impression of this beautiful girl and knew that she was indeed a resident of the community. When he saw her smile like a blooming flower, he was even more convinced. He quickly answered, "Okay, no problem." I'll open it right away. Thank you. Yenjika smiled sweetly and secretly made a face to Lu Cheng. Idiot Cheng. After she went in and sent a message, Lu Cheng took the access card and calmly walked to the gate of the community. He swiped the card and slowly passed through. The security guard did feel that he was a stranger, but it was not strange that the residents of the community often had relatives or friends who stayed temporarily. Following Yenjika's instructions, he turned around and came to a villa. The girl was sitting on the swing in the front garden and looking at him with a smile. My dad made this when we first moved in. Yenjika proudly introduced it. Lu Cheng clicked his tongue. Father-in-law knows carpentry? Of course my dad is awesome. Yenjika was used to Lu Cheng calling her father-in-law and mother-in-law shamelessly. Instead of being annoyed, she felt sweet. Lu Cheng looked around and said worriedly, "The security of your community is very ordinary. The entrance is very loose. I can't believe I got in so easily. It doesn't look like a rich community. My mom always says that. She always suggests that we ask my uncle's security company to do it. But you know many people are too lazy to do it. But with Zhang Xuming's case, I think this matter will be passed soon. At that time it will be difficult for some idiot to sneak in." Yenjika said with a gloating smile. She led her boyfriend to the front of the house, unlocked her fingerprint, opened the door, and found a pair of slippers for Lu Cheng. After putting on the slippers, Lu Cheng suddenly had an idea and picked up his martial arts shoes. "What are you going to do with them?" Yenjika closed the door and asked confusedly. Lu Cheng laughed. "I put them in the room. If I put them here, your parents will be exposed when they come back." "You're right." Yenjika nodded and suddenly understood. Then she looked at Lu Cheng with a faint smile. "Cheng, you seem to be very experienced. Tell me, did you go to other girls' houses often before?" "It's not me. It's Talker. I learned from his mistakes," Lu Cheng quickly explained. "You're also an experienced person in the future." Yenjika raised her arm and said seriously. While walking from the living room to the stairs, Lu Cheng deeply felt the difference between the Yen family and his own family. It was impossible to say that he didn't feel inferior. Fortunately, he was in a high-spirited stage and felt that no matter what the difference was, he could make up for it, so he didn't feel depressed. When he came to the second floor and entered the girls' boudoir, he saw pink, white, and all kinds of dolls. Big ones, small ones, cute ones, and weird ones. Yenjika took a step forward and rushed to the bedside. Blushing, she picked up the clothes and sundries scattered on the carpet and stuffed them into one of the wardrobes. Lu Cheng breathed in the familiar fragrance in the room and said with a smile, "I thought it would be very tidy." Of course, it was much tidier than his own room. "Humph, who tidies every day?" Yenjika slightly raised her head and looked to the side. At this moment, as the door closed, the atmosphere in the girls' boudoir became quiet, and suddenly there was an indescribable ambiguity. This was a real private space where no one would disturb. Yenjika's long black eyelashes trembled a few times. Like a flustered little white rabbit, she took out several photo albums from the bookshelf and didn't dare to look directly at Lu Cheng. She said, "I am going to take a shower first. You can look at the photos yourself." Lu Cheng resisted the impulse and nodded with a smile. "Okay." Hearing his answer, Yenjika turned her head and looked into his eyes. Her eyes became clear and soft again. "Except for my dad, you're the first man to enter this room. So I feel a little uncomfortable. It's not that I don't trust you. I understand." Lu Cheng smiled like a flower. His achievement of entering Ku's boudoir was achieved. Yenjika took out a change of clothes and went into the bathroom. Lu Cheng took a few deep breaths and focused on the photo album to prevent himself from thinking too much and being impulsive. This part of the album was of the girl between 3 and 7 years old. She was dressed more westernly than her peers, with a little baby fat, pretty and cute. But it could be seen that she was always in a bad mood. In many photos she looked quiet and gloomy. But even so, when she was not affected by the illness, she still tried to smile brightly and enjoy life. She was not afraid of death, and was optimistic about life. Lu Cheng took out his phone, and took dozens of photos that were so cute that he couldn't take them anymore. Some of them were in princess dresses with straight bangs, some were in ponytails swaying, and some were staring at him innocently with wide eyes. At this moment, Yenjika came out of the shower and changed into a half-sleeved nightgown. Her body was steaming and fragrant. "It's your turn." Seeing Lu Cheng's eyes that looked like he was going to pounce on her, she turned her body and shyly said, "Go take a shower first. It's so dirty." "First?" Lu Cheng was delighted and nodded hard. "Okay." Yenjika didn't realize that there was something wrong with her choice of words. She said to herself, "Wrap yourself in a bath towel first. I'll find you my dad's old pajamas. He's taller than you, but it's almost the same." "Okay." Lu Cheng walked into the bathroom. When he finished the shower, put on his boxers and came out wrapped in a bath towel. Yenjika happened to come in with a set of pajamas. Seeing Lu Cheng's 2 hairy legs, bare shoulders, and skin exposed by the bath towel, she giggled and said with a flirtatious look in her eyes, "Come on, give me a smile. Cheng now looks like he's been touched by me." "Sure." Lu Cheng chuckled. Taking advantage of the situation, he pounced on the girl and hugged her. Yenjika hurriedly supported her arms and looked to the side. First eat." "First?" Lu Cheng kissed her and pulled away with great perseverance. He smiled and said, "It's time for you to see my ancestral skill of egg fried rice. I always feel like you're bragging." Yenjika touched the place where she was kissed and pretended to be disdainful. When she came out of the room with 2 sets of martial arts suits, Lu Cheng quickly changed into his pajamas and went downstairs to the kitchen. He found the fridge and took out the cold rice and eggs. The sound of the washing machine was heard. Yenjika came back and watched Lu Cheng skillfully beating and stirring the eggs with great interest. Her eyes sparkled a little bit. She didn't watch but walked over with a sense of participation. She focused on how to use the kitchen. In the end, she said eagerly, "Cheng, how about I mix 3 shreds? I remember there are still ingredients left from last night." "You cook, I mix." "You know how to mix?" Lu Cheng was surprised and happy. Yenjika pursed her lips and nodded seriously. "No. But aren't there so many recipes on the internet? I'm not stupid. Can't I follow them?" Lu Cheng was a little nervous. "Then you can try." "Okay." Yenjika took out her phone and searched for recipes. She frowned and said, "How do you judge 5 grams and 3 grams? Feel it." Lu Cheng answered honestly. "No, it's too unreliable." Yenjika knitted her beautiful eyebrows and looked up. Suddenly, she cheered and said happily, "I'm so stupid. I can use tools." She turned and left the kitchen and went upstairs. "Tools?" Lu Cheng said to himself in confusion. "What tools? Weighing tools in the kitchen?" After waiting for more than a minute, the girl rushed back with an object. Lu Cheng looked at it and found it was the children's version of the experimental balance. "When I was a child, I liked chemistry very much. My dad gave me this." Yenjika showed her dimples and smiled sweetly. Then she carefully wiped the balance and weights and started to weigh accurately with the help of a bowl and spoon. Lu Cheng was stunned. After a while, he held back his laughter and said, "You're so strict." "Of course." Yenjika was not modest at all. Not long after, the smell of the egg-fried rice floated in the kitchen and made the girl's nose twitch. She clapped her hands and said, "I'm done. You try it." "Why me?" Lu Cheng complained. He turned off the fire and divided the egg-fried rice into 2 portions. Then he picked up the chopsticks and picked up a few pieces. "Not bad," he praised with all his strength. "Although it's just average, at least it's edible, right?" Yenjika beamed with joy and proudly placed the cold dish on the table. Lu Cheng followed closely behind her and brought the egg-fried rice and chopsticks to the table. "Well, it's delicious. I admit that you're a master of egg-fried rice." The girl ate a mouthful of rice and said happily and sweetly. Lu Cheng was about to say something when he suddenly heard the sound of a fingerprint unlocking the door. Yenjika sat up straight and looked over in horror. Thoughts flashed through Lu Cheng's mind as scenes after scenes flashed through his mind. Is it my father-in-law who came home? He looked at the pajamas he was wearing and thought to himself, "I'm not going anywhere. If I said that I just came to take a shower, cook a meal and dry my clothes without doing anything bad, Uncle Yen, would you believe me?" Chapter 243. I think most of them won't believe it. Lu Qing was sure that no father would believe his explanation in such a setting, and wearing such clothes. Therefore, while he was thinking, he had already picked up the bowl and chopsticks. With a flick of his waist and a smooth burst of strength, he left his seat and dashed into the kitchen. Fortunately, Ke's kitchen was not an open type. Although Yenjika was frightened, she also stood up and rushed to the door, trying to attract attention, and buy time for Lu Qing to hide. During this process, they didn't communicate, but they were so tacit and so similar. They were both calm in the face of danger, good at making decisions, and not resigned to their fate. Yenjika stepped forward lightly and agilely. In just a few seconds, she was at the other end of the living room. At this moment, the door was completely opened. A tall, thin, middle-aged man walked in, carrying a bag of food. He smiled at his daughter who was bouncing towards him. Have you had breakfast? I just passed by Qingyuan Street and thought that you liked to eat steamed buns, so I brought some back for you. Dad really came back at the last minute. Yenjika's heart was beating fast. She didn't dare to look back to see how Lu Qing was hiding. She stepped forward and held Yen Kai's arm, smiling sweetly. Dad, you always surprise me. You are a model father. This time it was a shock. In the kitchen, Lu Qing hid in the corner beside the refrigerator, listening to the conversation, controlling his heartbeat, and carefully muting his phone. It really is my father-in-law. He glanced at the kitchen knives and had a feeling that they would cut his body at any moment. Yen Kai was in his 40s. His eyes were clear, and his nose was high. He was a very handsome man. His youthful appearance had been preserved to this day, which added a bit of elegance to him. Time had not worn away his appearance, but instead made him more charming. Every time Yenjika saw her dad, she would feel that Empress Dowager was definitely a beauty lover. Fortunately, she had been tested by her dad and cousin's beauty when she was young, so she was immune to it. Otherwise, she might have missed the stupid Cheng. Yen Kai patted his daughter's hand and laughed. You are not growing up. You are still so spoiled. At this point, he sniffled and asked in confusion. It smells pretty good. Egg fried rice? Lu Cheng's back suddenly tensed up, and his heart seemed to skip a beat. Yenjika's mind went blank for a second. She looked up and came up with an idea. Dad, let me show you something. She generously pulled her father to the dining table, secretly rejoicing that her father's kung fu was only at the amateur level and did not know the listening skill. Otherwise, her heartbeat would have exposed everything. With a smile on his face, Yen Kai followed his daughter to the dining room and saw the bowl of egg fried rice and salad. While he was guessing with great interest, Yenjika pointed at the table, raised her head slightly, and said proudly, I did it. Yes, I made the coleslaw. You did it? Yen Kai looked at his daughter in surprise. He didn't expect that his precious little princess, who usually didn't do any household chores, was secretly learning how to cook. He smiled in relief. Are you planning to give us a surprise? Yenjika smiled but didn't say anything. She didn't want to lie to her father. For the first time in my life, I have to taste my daughter's cooking. Yen Kai smiled and walked to the kitchen to get another set of chopsticks. Hearing his footsteps approaching, Lu Cheng's mind went blank. He seemed to see himself full of kitchen knives. He looked around, urgently thinking about where to hide. In the cupboard? But I don't know the bone shrinking skill. On the ceiling? But I don't know the gecko wall climbing skill. If I force it, I'll leave scratches. Lu Qing couldn't help but feel that his current fighting style wasn't adaptable enough. Yenjika was also startled, but she was still calm. She pulled her father and said, Sit down. Sit down. I'll get it for you. Okay. I'll enjoy it this time. Yen Kai was very happy. He sat at the dining table and smilingly watched his daughter go into the kitchen. This girl is getting better at taking care of people. Yenjika's back was to her father. She glanced around and saw Lu Qing squatting beside the refrigerator, holding a bowl in his left hand and a pair of chopsticks in his right. It was very funny. She pursed her lips tightly, trying to hold back her smile. She nodded slightly at her boyfriend, then squatted down, opened the drawer, took out a set of bowls and chopsticks, washed them, then turned around and walked out. Lu Qing didn't even dare to breathe. He only relaxed a little. He felt like a thief who was trapped in the house by the owner. Well, a thief who stole someone's precious daughter. This seemed to be more abominable than the former. Yenjika went back to the dining table, took some egg fried rice from her bowl, and gave it to her father. Then she stared at him and said, "Try this dish first. I spent a lot of effort on it." Yenkai laughed, picked up his chopsticks and picked up a few pieces. After tasting them carefully, he said, "It's okay. It'll be better after you get familiar with it. It doesn't seem like your first time." "Yes, it's my first time." Yenjika would be very happy to be praised by her father in normal times. But now she was very nervous. She was still thinking about the person in the kitchen. She wanted to smile but felt stiff. So she turned around and ran into the kitchen. She took out the children's balance and said as if she was presenting a treasure, "I've measured it accurately." Yenkai was stunned for a while before he reacted. He shook his head affectionately. "I believe it's your first time. This is really my baby girl's style." Yenjika smiled and said with her eyes curved, "I'll definitely do better on your birthday." Yenkai was comforted. He couldn't stop smiling and ate another mouthful of egg fried rice. After a while he said softly, "This is good. It's very good. It's very delicious. Is this your first time? It's better than your mother's." He paused and said with a smile, "Don't tell your mother that I said this before. Don't worry. We're on the same side." Yenjika smiled sweetly and then answered honestly, "It's not my first time." "It's indeed not the first time. It's the 0th time." Clever Yenjika. Lu Chung was stunned in the kitchen. "But my egg fried rice has been recognized by my father-in-law. Does this count as a successful step? If you want to marry a girl, you must first conquer her father's stomach." Before Yenkai said anything, the girl added, "I don't even know how I did it today. I may not be able to make it so delicious in the future. Dad, you can't dislike it." She was telling the truth. She really didn't know how Lu Qing did it. She was also preparing herself for the future. All newbies are like this. Your father was like this when he was young. Yenkai smiled contentedly. He ate a few mouthfuls of egg fried rice and salad for a long time, savoring the aftertaste. Yenjika, on the other hand, was eating nervously and tastelessly beside him. Yenkai put down his chopsticks and looked at his watch. "I have to go back to the hospital. Your mother will come back tomorrow. Let's go on a short trip around the city." "Okay." Yenjika didn't know if she was happy because of the family trip or because her father was finally going to work. She followed behind Yenkai and walked him to the door. She watched him walk out and waved at him. After closing the door, she relaxed and her legs were a little weak. It wasn't that she didn't dare to face her father for Lu Chung, but she felt that their relationship was developing smoothly, sweet and beautiful, and they seemed to have a bright future ahead of them. There was no need to complicate things, which could easily lead to unbearable changes, such as the attitude of her father and the attitude of her grandparents. Walking back to the dining table, she was surprised to find that her boyfriend hadn't come out yet. She went into the kitchen and saw Lu Qing leaning against the fridge, wiping cold sweat. He wouldn't sweat so much even if he fought in a challenge tournament. He was scared because of her father. Yenjika felt sweet and smiled. "Why are you still here? Do you like the kitchen? I'm afraid that your father will come back." Lu Qing pretended to be mature. "Let's wait for another 10 minutes. Yenjika smiled and said, "Is this also Kai Zongming's experience?" "No, it's habitual caution." Lu Qing returned to normal and made a self-deprecating remark. Fortunately, he put the martial arts shoes in Ku's room. Otherwise, his father-in-law would have caught us in the act, just now. "Little Ming, you didn't die in vain." Yenjika couldn't help but laugh. Then she sighed with mixed feelings. "I'm sorry. It's not good to be so sneaky. Not only did I cheat my father, but I also wronged you." It made her feel guilty and sad. Lu Qing calmed down and solemnly promised, "In the future, I'll come here openly." And to do that, stepping into the dance stage was the most basic thing. It wasn't that he couldn't marry Ku if he didn't reach the dance stage. Wasn't his father-in-law just an amateur fighter? But as a man, he had to work hard and try his best to overcome difficulties, so that the girl wouldn't feel embarrassed. At this moment, He was determined to fight for the martial arts and the dance stage. Do your best. Yenjika's eyes rippled as she said in a low voice. Then she nodded seriously and said, but now the most important thing is another matter. What? Lu Cheng was a little confused. Yenjika smiled and showed her dimples. Teach me how to make egg fried rice. I want to give my father and Empress Dowager a surprise. You're right. Lu Cheng realized. In the following time, the two of them relaxed and ate the egg fried rice, cold dish and steamed bun sweetly. Then Lu Cheng steamed a new pot of rice and taught Yenjika step by step. Again and again, they rubbed each other's ears, touched each other's heads, and kissed each other passionately. To be honest, Lu Cheng really wanted to go further in this completely private space. But considering that the girl had just experienced the shock of her father's return, and was not in a stable mood, he forced himself to hold back. Unknowingly, it was 11 o'clock. Yenjika was barely satisfied with her new egg fried rice. Alas, I only saw a few photos. Lu Cheng said with some regret. Auntie is coming, I should go. Yenjika thought about how she was so focused on making out that the egg fried rice burned several times. She said with a reddish face, it's not like I can't come here in the future. At that time, she could hide in the room and not come out to cook. Even if her father and Empress Dowager suddenly came home, she wouldn't be discovered. I'm looking forward to it. Lu Cheng imitated his girlfriend's tone and answered. After reluctantly parting, Lu Cheng looked at the towering buildings in the villa area. Facing the sun in the sky, he stepped forward. There was an urgent and clear goal in his heart. That was to enter the dance stage. Chapter 244. Standing by the window and watching Lu Cheng's figure disappear at the end of the road, Yenjika bit her lip and resisted the urge to follow him out. She withdrew her gaze and sniffed. The aroma of egg fried rice filled the whole room. She picked up her phone and unconsciously smiled. Her fingers quickly typed a message to her boyfriend, who she had just separated from. It's all your fault. Every time I close my eyes, all I can think of is egg fried rice. Because the cold rice from last night was cooked by Lu Cheng and turned into breakfast for 2 people, the following kitchen lessons could only be replaced by freshly steamed rice. Although the essence of the dish couldn't be fully understood, it was enough for her to master the basic skills of egg fried rice. Soon she received Lu Cheng's reply. Hee hee, every time I close my eyes, all I can think of is the burnt egg fried rice. Yenjika's cheeks flushed. She spat and clenched her teeth while typing on the keyboard. Pervert. Big pervert. She walked lightly into the study, turned on the computer, logged into the surveillance system, and began to search for videos related to Lu Cheng. She planned to format them and not leave any trace. It's hard to guard against a thief in the house. It's not a big deal if a thief comes to steal the cabbage at home. The big deal is that the cabbage wants to follow him. When she saw Lu Cheng carrying his martial arts shoes and tiptoeing up the stairs, Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled. Her hand that wasn't holding the mouse rested on her chin. She actually watched the video seriously, as if she had forgotten her original purpose. There were no surveillance cameras in the bedroom, so the scene quickly switched to the kitchen. She watched as Lu Cheng, dressed in pajamas, skillfully cracked eggs to start a fire and tossed a wok of fried rice. She watched as she busily weighed the seasonings with a child's balance. The girl changed her posture slightly, cupping her cheek with one hand. The look in her eyes grew softer and softer, like ripples of a rippling lake. Her heart felt warm and full. When the two of them sat side by side and enjoyed breakfast like newlyweds, Yenjika spat again and clicked the pause button. She stood up abruptly and ran upstairs. Back in her room, she took out her portable hard drive with large capacity. I have to copy and save the videos about Cheng. She looked at them and moved them bit by bit. She couldn't help but laugh at Lu Cheng's silly look as he squatted beside the fridge with a bowl and chopsticks. She blushed and her eyes teared up, because the two of them were so engrossed in their intimacy that they burned a serving of egg fried rice. Even though she had quickly skimmed through these parts, she discovered many details that she hadn't noticed before from another angle. For example, when they were kissing passionately, Lu Cheng's hand was stroking her back. He had tried to move his hand closer to her body several times, but he had resisted the urge. Pervert. She cursed in a low voice. Her eyes were filled with both joy and anger. He really craves me, and he really respects me. But why do boys always like that kind of thing? Just as her thoughts were wandering, she heard the sound of a fingerprint unlocking the door. Yenjika suddenly sobered up. She quickly copied the remaining surveillance videos to her hard drive and reformatted the original ones. After finishing all this, she turned off the computer, walked out of the study, and smiled at the aunties. Auntie Huang, make 3 extra servings for lunch. I have a few friends coming over. One of them is a professional fighter. They all like your steamed Christian carp very much. Song Li Gushuang and Xing Jingjing were coming to visit later. They would interrogate her in detail about her secret relationship. Okay, I'll go buy the ingredients right away. The auntie in charge of cooking said with a smile. Yenjika pursed her lips and pretended to say casually, by the way, there's a lot of egg fried rice in the kitchen. Just throw it away. I'll use it for practice. The afternoon sun shone into the living room, making it hot and dry. Zhao Zijuan sat on the sofa with the air conditioner in his hand. He didn't turn it on for a long time. No one knew what he was thinking. Old Zhao. Huang Kun came out with the food and shouted in confusion. Didn't I ask you to turn on the air conditioner? What are you thinking about? The place where they worked was close to home. Huang Kun's work was more leisurely, so she would come back for lunch if she had nothing to do. Zhao Zijuan sighed and said with a wry smile. I'm thinking about the boy from the Lu family. Although I can't find out his relationship with Director Xing, I can see that he has a bright future. As long as there are no accidents, he will be rich in the future. He had already checked the general situation of Lu Cheng. Huang Kun hesitated and said, how about we let Qianqian meet Lu Yanwei? He's a good guy. Looks like the Lu family is going to be rich. No. Don't think about it. I've been a police officer for so many years and caught so many criminals. I have a good eye for people. Zhao Zijuan rejected his wife's proposal. Lu Yanwei is good in other aspects, but he's too frivolous and unstable. He refuses to do things in a down-to-earth way. It's hard to change this character. In the future, even if his younger brother is very capable, I'm afraid that he can't take care of him. Then why do you want to know about the boy from the Lu family? He's still in college. Huang Kun asked angrily. Zhao Zijuan stood up and walked to the table. He said, even if I can't ask him for help, I still need to be on good terms with him. Lu Jisheng and I have been friends since we were young. I need to keep in touch with him and his family more. If anything happens in the future, it's better to ask them for help than Lu Yanwei. You've been thinking about these things for years. Huang Kun shook her head. Zhao Zijuan sat at the table and said self-deprecatingly, I didn't understand before. I've been suffering. But in recent years I finally understand that it's really important to curry favor. In a small training field of the Gushan Martial Arts School, Lu Qing crossed his arms and watched Qin Rui's every move thoughtfully. Still stance was not something that could be mastered in a short time. After an hour of individual guidance, he would try and practice hard day after day. Occasionally he would have some questions, so he didn't want Qin Rui to waste too much money on this. In this hour of individual guidance, the focus was on the correction of the fighting style. Chu Weikai was a real professional ninth pin fighter. He was deeply immersed in tiger form and other sections. He had no problem teaching the fighting style and moves, but after all he was old and didn't have enough energy. The opportunities and number of people he could teach were limited. Most of the time, he had to rely on Dai Linfeng's help. Under such circumstances, Qin Rui's strength techniques, footwork, and punches were good. But when it came to the connection of moves, there were some problems. He was over 1.9 meters tall with long arms and legs. Many of his moves had to be adjusted correspondingly to make the connection smoother and more natural. But no one had ever pointed this out to him before. Good. Tiger hug and downward chop. This adjustment will make it easier for you to follow up later changes. Lu Qing nodded in approval. Qin Rui smiled bitterly. But it feels awkward to fight. Any change of habits is awkward. Practice more and try to make these adjustments into habits. Lu Qing smiled. One taught, the other practiced. Time passed quickly. Qin Rui was a little more familiar with the adjusted fighting style. He was more convinced by Lu Cheng. When I'm completely familiar with it, I might be able to give Senior Dai a surprise. Qin Rui said smugly. Lu Cheng smiled and didn't comment. Some things had to be tried by oneself to know where the gap was. After Qin Rui left, he drank the medicine soup he brought, and started his own training. Thinking of the urgent and clear goal at noon, Lu Cheng felt a breath of air pass through his chest. He was full of motivation. Thunderclouds filled his mind. His stomach rumbled. His muscles tightened and compressed. His punches and kicks were accompanied by the sound of wind and thunder. This time, the effect of his training was better and better. He felt like he was getting twice the result with half the effort. However, he still couldn't find his own martial arts will. To be more precise, he didn't know what martial arts will was. The desire to win, the unshakable will, and the will to enjoy without lust. He didn't lack any of these. But what the hell was martial arts will? Confused, Lu Cheng ended his training and made a call. He decided to ask his master for advice. Hey brat, what's the problem this time? Geezer sure coughed. Lu Cheng answered honestly. Master, I'd like to ask you what martial arts will is. Well, that's a good question. Geezer sure laughed. He had been waiting for his disciple to call and ask for advice. Taking the initiative to tell that brat was different from waiting for advice. The latter would be much better. Ha ha ha. He paused and said slowly. To put it bluntly, it's the training of the heart and mind. Only with a firm heart can you control the body, control the details, and influence the spirit, chi blood, and force to complete the withdraw attempt. It's similar to the feeling when you enter meditation, but the latter can't be done in a fight. That's why I said that with this as the foundation, it will be much easier for you to enter the Dan stage. As for how to be firm in one's heart, and how to possess the martial will, the experts of each sect and faction have their own understanding and path. They are not completely the same. As for me, I'm closer to the military, so my understanding is also related to them. Let me give you an example. Do you know what the biggest difference between the modern army and the modern army is? No. Lu Cheng didn't know anything about this. Geezer sure answered seriously, which was rare for him. Modern armies use strict discipline and cruel punishment to paralyze soldiers, making them fear military discipline more than death. Modern armies, on the other hand, dare to face death directly because they know what they are fighting for. Why did the army that created miracles time and time again complete the long march? Why did they have a steel-like will? Why did they still move forward after encountering so many difficulties? It's not because they were born great, it's not because they are monsters. It's because they have understood why they are fighting for, and how much they are willing to pay for it. Many people always say that they can learn the spirit of the long march and learn the will that is nothing to them. That's just on the surface. They don't see the essence at all. They don't dare or are unwilling to ask why they and not any other army at that time did it. The source of their strength, spirit, and will is that they know what they are fighting for. Lu Cheng was shocked. He had never seen things from this angle before. When his master hung up the phone, he was still muttering to himself, "What are they fighting for?" Chapter 245. Lu Cheng stood there, repeating his words at the beginning to torture himself. The reason why he fought was not something he said casually, nor was it something he did on impulse, nor was it a choice he made under the pressure of external forces without knowing his true thoughts. According to what his master said just now, are you willing to sacrifice your life for this? Are you willing to die for this generosity? Are you willing to suffer for this for decades? Of course, I'm not asking you to do it now. We're not like the Buddhist Zen sect, which focuses on epiphany and can do it immediately after understanding it. Just like the Iron Army, when they first understood why they were fighting, they just understood. It was impossible for them to be willing to sacrifice themselves for it on the spot. Only through experience, practice, and hammering could they sublimate their understanding into ideas and into perseverance. Only then could they do things that ordinary people find inconceivable. This is also the reason why many dance stage martial artists are stagnant. They think that once they find the will of martial arts and the source of power, they can do it once and for all. As a result, They are gradually influenced by all kinds of temptations and forget their initial spirit. They can't persevere, let alone sublimate to the level that I mentioned before. The long march was indeed a retreat. However, as the saying goes, it is hard to find a general who can win a battle, but it is also hard to find a general who can keep the army in order despite defeat. A defeated army is easily defeated, is the truth proven by thousands of years of practice. When winning, morale can be maintained by hope, wealth, honor, military discipline, and religious beliefs. However, when defeat comes, all of these often become useless. Escaping is instinct, hiding is instinct, and staying away from danger is also instinct. There are very few commanders who can keep the army in order for dozens or hundreds of miles when they are defeated and chased. However, under the circumstances of being chased and intercepted from all sides and the environment is extremely bad, the army actually persisted for more than 20,000 miles without dispersing or collapsing. Not only that, but they had also condensed a steel-like will. This was definitely not something that could be achieved by just going to a certain place and living a good life. The only explanation was that everyone had the same desire. Everyone knew what they were fighting for and how much they were willing to pay for it. There must be a kind of spirit shining and connecting heaven and earth. Then what am I fighting for? Why should I face the difficulties and dangers of the road of martial arts? Lu Cheng was lost in thought. The thirst for victory? No, I would feel joy from victory and pain from defeat, but I wouldn't be willing to pay too great a price for it. Not only would I be willing to die, I wouldn't even be willing to be crippled. There would be duels again and again, and even if I lost, I could always try again. But in a battle of life and death, no one would be willing to die. It was a passive choice. Pure love for martial arts? The yearning to reach the peak of martial arts? No, I do like martial arts very much. But before I picked up the Jindan, I didn't think it would be a big deal if I couldn't practice martial arts. After I picked up the Jindan, I only had a little more longing for the future. I had a little more hope for becoming a mighty one with physical invulnerability and getting a title in the future. Just longing and hope. Could they earn a lot of wealth and improve their social status? No, these were very good, but one had to be alive and healthy to enjoy them. Similarly, not to mention dying generously, he wasn't even willing to bear being crippled. Then why did I start learning martial arts? Lu Cheng recalled the past and asked himself blankly. The answer was very simple, and it made him want to laugh. It was purely to get close to Yen Zheka, to woo the girl he had been secretly in love with for a long time. I'm such a vulgar person. Lu Cheng shook his head and laughed. He suddenly remembered the anticipation, nervousness, and lack of confidence at that time. Then more images came to his mind. When leaving the villa area, the eagerness to walk into Yen Zheka's house openly, the sweetness of one holding a wok of fried rice, the other weighing the vegetables, and finally enjoying it side by side. The inner strength that drove him to Zhengke County without regard for anything else in the heavy rain. The certainty of dreaming of the future together and planning their lives together. The tacit understanding of giving each other rings and promising each other a lifetime of solemnity and joy. In the hotel room, when he woke up in the morning, Ko hooked her arms around his neck and asked for breakfast like an old married couple. The torture of enduring all kinds of torture, the exhaustion of the tremor massage, the surprise of having a kiss mark on his mouth after he fell asleep, the excitement of their first kiss and the feeling of his heart beating violently under the street lights beside Weishui Lake, the surprise of Ku taking the initiative to reach out her hand, and the memory of the first time they held each other's hands but lost their direction. Hearing Ku's soft but honest words of fear and apprehension, he felt pity and moved. The nervousness and uneasiness after the confession, and the ecstasy and brilliance after witnessing the reply of, "Let me be happy for 5 minutes first." The excitement of receiving Ku's blessing call on his birthday made him want to roar twice. The warmth of the new year on New Year's Eve when they listened to each other's breathing, the satisfaction of the first cheer in the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament from the girl he loved, and the burst of strength, because of it. Because they were in the honeymoon period, there were expectations every day, endless topics to talk about and endless joy to feel. Although Lu Cheng liked to collect and record the traces of the past, He didn't have the time or thought to reminisce about it. Until now, when the memories flashed, he realized that he and Yenjika had been through so much, and his feelings in his heart had changed a lot. This was like the tempering and sublimation of the martial arts will that his master had mentioned. In the beginning, he admired Ko because of her looks and her legendary good character. She was the perfect girl in his imagination. Therefore, when he confessed to her, he didn't dare to say that he loved her. It seemed that he didn't have the courage to say it. He only said that he liked her very much. But now, after merging with the past bit by bit, into his memory, flesh and blood, into his life, Lu Qing suddenly felt that he really fell in love with Yenjika. He fell in love with the girl who was willing to communicate with him, fell in love with the girl who was sometimes more rational, and fell in love with the coach Yen, who was soft on the outside but tough on the inside. At this moment, his heart was filled with all kinds of emotions because of those scenes. His heart was filled with all kinds of feelings, and he was willing to challenge everything for this beautiful feeling. From this to the other, the little touches hidden in his memory were all clear. That was the white hair of his father who gave up his dignity and ran around tirelessly. That was his unspoken and silent love. That was his mother's long-winded words full of concern. That was the bitterness that she struggled to maintain by setting up a street stall. That was the lie that they didn't like to eat meat. That was the love that they had given over and over again. Lu Cheng's eyes were suddenly wet, and his heart was overflowing with energy. He vaguely understood what he wanted and what he wanted to do. Protect. This is the life that I want to protect with everything I have. To protect is not to protect, but to make myself better and better, so that the people I love can also be better and better, so that they don't suffer pain and danger. Lu Qing took out his mobile phone, logged into QQ, entered the collection, and clicked on the first voice message. A soft, clear, and familiar voice echoed in his ears. Lu Qing. Lu Qing. Lu Qing, you can do it. Lu Qing, you can do it. He listened to it over and over again, and the corners of his mouth opened little by little. Finally, he glanced at the ring on his left hand, rubbed it, and quietly closed his eyes, feeling the surging and turbulent power in his body. For them, I am willing to face difficulties and not afraid of danger. For them, I dare to challenge uncertainty and disregard myself. He put away his mobile phone, and once again got into a fighting stance. Bang bang bang. Seabed quake, mountain smash quake, one move after another. During this process, he only felt that his heart was filled with the emotions just now, and the power just now. It seemed that there were no other distracting thoughts, clear and transparent, both inside and outside. Once the heart was clear, the mind was right. His spirit seemed to penetrate through his whole body, reaching every detail, and vaguely controlling them. With the influence of the internal training method and the medicinal effect of the medicinal soup, he penetrated the strength, making his muscles, bones, and joints crackle. This was very similar to the state of great success in meditation. But Lu Qing only maintained it for a few minutes before he lost the feeling of having the power in his heart. His martial will was to protect. It came from the bits and pieces of his daily life, from the various feelings and emotions he had accumulated in the past. There was no need for him to ask for it, nor did he need to go through any arduous process to understand and discover it. However, he still had to polish and temper this martial will. He had to put this martial will into practice, and then strengthen it through practical experiences. It was just like how there were definitely many people who felt that they loved their parents and family, but there were relatively few who could truly persevere in doing so. However, in any case, Lu Qing questioned his heart for the first time, found the initial source of his power, and understood his martial arts will. Whoever dares to hurt the people I love, whoever dares to destroy my beauty, I am willing to fight against them at all costs. He exhaled, overjoyed, and took out his mobile phone to call his mother. Hello, Cheng. Why are you suddenly calling me? Are you not coming back for dinner again? Are you not coming back to sleep at night? Qi Feng's voice suddenly rose. Lu Cheng's eyes were hot, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, Mom, what are you thinking about? I'm just. He was going to say that he suddenly missed her, and wanted to give her a massage. But when the words came to his mouth, He knew that his mother would definitely be frightened and suspect that something had happened to him. So in the end he just played it down and said, "I just suddenly felt like eating fried eel." "You child, you should have said so earlier." "At this time, alas, I'll go to the market to have a look." Qifeng answered grumpily, but she still agreed. After hanging up, Lu Qing called his father again. "Hello Qing, what's up?" Lu Jisheng asked in confusion. Lu Qing lowered his head and smiled. "Dad, I remember that you have finished your Ningshui Daku original proof wine, right?" "Yes, you have connections? Don't bother your friends too much. It's okay if you can't get it." Lu Jisheng smiled. He remembered that he had made original proof wine during the spring festival. Lu Qing felt that his father wanted it but didn't want to waste his favor, so he smiled and said, "Don't worry, it's easy." With his current social circle, it couldn't be easier to make the Ningshui Daku original proof wine. "Okay." Lu Jisheng hung up the phone and couldn't help but hum a song. "My son is becoming more and more filial." After calling his parents, Lu Cheng's expression became gentler, and he called Yenjika with a smile. Yenjika was being interrogated by her 3 best friends in the room, when she suddenly heard her phone ring. She picked it up and answered the call in surprise and astonishment. "Cheng? Ku, I think I found my own martial arts will." Lu Qing didn't hide his joy. Really, Yenjika seemed to be happier than him. She was rarely excited. "What is it?" Her abnormality immediately attracted the attention of Gu Shuang and others. Except for the colder Xing Jingjing, the other 2 winked at each other, believing that it was Lu Qing calling. "Protect," Lu Qing said concisely. Yenjika looked up and asked him thoughtfully, "You're right. Protect?" Lu Qing didn't explain the specific meaning of protection. Looking at the sunlight outside, he shouted with a slightly red face, "Ku? Yes?" Yenjika didn't understand. Lu Qing cleared his throat and laughed in a low voice. "I love you." Chapter 246. Yenjika was caught off guard and was confused. She was not prepared for Lu Cheng's sudden confession. She was neither embarrassed nor happy, but more confused and frightened. Why did Cheng call me and say "I love you"? Lu Cheng could predict the girl's reaction. Thickening his skin, he smiled and said gently, "I was inspired by my training." "Okay." Yenjika still felt a little confused. The atmosphere was not right. Even between lovers, words like confessions would be awkward. Lu Qing smiled, imagining the girl's cute face. He coughed and said, "I'll continue my training. You can have a good chat with Song Li and the rest." "Okay." Yenjika put down her phone and saw the teasing looks of her friends. Song Li was still feeling touched and envious about how Lu Cheng had racked his brains to bring Xiaoshan delicacies to her friend from such a faraway place. She felt that her Du Liu was not doing a good enough job. At this moment, she was the first to speak. "You haven't been apart for long and he can't help calling you?" Yenjika wrinkled her nose and snorted. "Can't he call me?" Cheng had found his martial will in the initial stage. Thinking of this, she was stunned for a moment. The short conversation just now replayed in her ears. "I think I've found my martial arts will. Protect. I love you. I was inspired by my training." After a moment, Yenjika raised her head slightly and opened her eyes wide. She connected the context and suddenly understood the origin of the words, "I love you," and the thousands of words it represented. "I love you. Protect." She felt like some kind of emotion was exploding in her heart. She couldn't help but hold the pillow tight. She couldn't wait to call Lu Qing back and tell him the secret of her feelings. She couldn't wait to rush to Gushin Martial Arts School and feel his body temperature. At this moment, seeing the light in her eyes and her expression, Song Li, Gu Shuang, and the others suddenly felt that there was no need to ask anything. The answer was written clearly. After more than a minute, Xing Jingjing suddenly said, "I'm going to participate in the youth tournament at the end of the month." Yenjika came back to herself. "Sister Jingjing, why?" Xing Jingjing nodded slightly. "I want to see if he has the ability to protect you." Yenjika was speechless for a moment. After that incident, Sister Jingjing not only started to hate men, but also awakened a terrifying supernatural ability. Although she had just entered the professional 9th pin, To be able to stand out in such a strong martial arts school like Huahai University, one could imagine her actual strength. Bang, 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 bang. The airflow around Lu Qing kept exploding. His muscles, bones, and joints responded with crackling sounds. It was only after he tried to use the circulation of the Jindan that he was satisfied and ended the afternoon's training. In the days to come, he would temper and improve his martial will step by step. He would train his martial arts down to the smallest detail, so that the force in his body was almost as one. This was not something that could be comprehended in a single moment. Calm. Idiot. Yanjika typed 2 words with a blushing and smiling emoji. She didn't need to say anything. Lu Cheng's lips curled up. His heart was filled with warmth and sweetness. This is what I want to protect. This is the source of my strength. He walked out of the training ground and went to the locker room. Suddenly, he saw a familiar inner disciple coming to him. Brother Lu, do you have time? Su Rongfei smiled. Lu Qing didn't answer directly. He asked in surprise, "What's the matter?" Su Rongfei explained respectfully, "I want to ask for 2 hours of private tutoring. I saw Qin Rui's training just now and found that he really changed and improved." "Okay, tomorrow then. Tomorrow afternoon." Lu Qing agreed readily. Tomorrow, Empress Dowager would go back to Xiushan. Ku and her family would go on a short trip in the surrounding area. As for the private tutoring fee, of course, there was no discount. Satisfied with his feeling of being a master, Geyser drank a little wine happily. Suddenly he was startled and muttered, "Didn't that brat want to combine things of cultivation? Why did he ask about the will of martial arts so soon? Did he give up trying and take the path of combining supernatural ability and martial arts?" Geyser was full of curiosity. He wanted to know what situation his disciple was in, and what progress he had made. But as a master, how could he lower himself to take the initiative to ask? He coughed twice and decided to wait for Lu Cheng's good news or further questions. He waited for a long time. In the evening, after having dinner with Yan Kai, watching TV and chatting for a while, Yanjika finally felt relieved and put away her uneasiness. Judging from Dad's usual behavior, he didn't find anything unusual at that time. He didn't find Chung in the kitchen. Phew, I've escaped this time. I'll learn my lesson and try to keep him in my room. Well, if Dirty Tong was here, she would definitely say that my way of thinking was wrong. Shouldn't a normal person's thoughts be, learn your lesson and try not to let Ching sneak into my house in the future? After watching the news, Yan Kai went into the study. He didn't come out until it was almost 10 o'clock. He habitually picked up his phone and called Ji Mingyu to report on the day's situation. While talking, he happily said, "Ku has grown up and learned how to cook to surprise us." Ji Mingyu slid her finger on the touch screen of the computer and said in surprise, "Learn how to cook? Why didn't I see any signs of this? Hee, I found it by accident. When I passed by Qingyuan Street this morning, I thought that Ku liked the old steamed buns, so I bought some for her. Then I saw that she made egg fried rice and 3 shreds of cold salad. Actually, they were all okay. The 3 shreds of cold salad was a little green, but the egg fried rice was really good." Yan Kai recalled the surprise in the morning and described it happily. Ji Mingyu was stunned and said, "You went back at the last minute and found it by accident? The 3 shreds of salad was average, but the egg fried rice was pretty good?" "That's right. Otherwise, I think with Ku's character, she wouldn't have revealed it until my birthday." Yan Kai comforted him. Ji Mingyu covered her eyes and almost cried because of her husband's stupidity. "Your cabbage is about to be taken away by someone else." Yanjika put her legs on the doll and played with her phone leisurely while replying to Lu Cheng. The corners of her mouth were curled up, full of smiles. At this moment, the phone rang and vibrated. She was surprised to see that there was an incoming call. Empress Dowager. Her heart skipped a beat. Didn't I just greet Empress Dowager before dinner? Picking up the phone, Yanjika tried to calm herself down and said in a normal tone, "Mom. Ku, I heard from your dad that you tried to cook by yourself at home today. You made egg fried rice and 3 shreds of salad?" Ji Mingyu asked with a faint smile. Yenjika suddenly shivered and thoughts ran through her mind. In the end, she chose to confess. Stammering, she said, "Mom, that was the orange. Lu Qing made it. I made 3 shreds of salad. He just came to cook for me and took a shower. He didn't do anything else." With Empress Dowager's wisdom and experience, she should have noticed something was wrong with her advantage of knowing the inside story. Hearing her daughter's confession, Ji Mingyu felt much better. She sighed and said with a smile, "Your father is so happy. He thinks that you did it to surprise him. Sai, you have to practice hard when you go back and really do it for him. You can't let him be happy for nothing." Her heart ached for her husband. "I've been practicing egg fried rice for the whole morning just for him." Yenjika quickly expressed her attitude. She felt quite guilty towards her father. Ji Mingyu returned to the topic and laughed. "Lu Qing didn't listen to me and told you that I saw him? Otherwise, Ka wouldn't have confessed so easily just now. That guy seems to be a henpecked husband." "Yes." Yenjika answered in a low voice and then argued for Lu Qing. "This is the most basic honesty between two people. Oh, you're not married yet. You're already helping an outsider?" Ji Mingyu was annoyed and amused. "You said he came here all morning and did nothing but take a shower and cook for you? Mom." Yenjika certainly knew what Empress Dowager wanted to ask. She blushed. "He was teaching me how to cook egg fried rice. We know what to do. I won't say anything. You're more stubborn than I was, and I believe you know what to do. But how many men can stop in this kind of thing? He keeps asking you to do it step by step. Won't you be soft-hearted? Won't you compromise?" Ji Mingyu decided to talk to her daughter frankly about that kind of thing. She couldn't let her suffer because she didn't know enough. Unlike other parents, Ji Mingyu was more open-minded and liked to communicate frankly. Yenjika was like her in this aspect. Yenjika said shyly, "Mom, why do you keep talking about this? And Chung is not the kind of person you're talking about." Okay. I won't say it. I just want to remind you to take good care of yourself and think twice before you act." Ji Mingyu said helplessly. Just from the few words just now, she could tell that her daughter was deeply in love with her. On the morning of July 22nd, Lu Qing was practicing by the lake in People's Park. In the past 2 weeks, he had absorbed strength from all kinds of emotions and beautiful things of the past, gathered his willpower, and practiced Thunder Zen internally. With the help of the medicinal soup, he had gradually practiced martial arts to the smallest detail. He only needed to practice a little more, and he would be able to integrate the strength of his whole body into one. In the past 2 weeks, Yenjika and her parents went on a 4-day trip to the surrounding areas. Then, she accompanied her grandparents who came to Xioshan for a week. With Empress Dowager's arrangement from time to time, she and Lu Qing could only practice together, go on dates and see each other. Their inner desires couldn't be satisfied at all. When this feeling accumulated, she had to fly to Jiangnan. She was congenitally deficient, and her family was worried that something would go wrong when practicing the internal training method. Therefore, she had to practice with her grandparents to get through the initial difficult stage. This time, she was gone for at least 10 days. Lu Qing had to integrate the pain of lovesickness into his punches and feet. He used QQ calls and video chats to relieve the pain. In his free time he surfed the internet, browsed the forums, and met with Jiang Fei, Qin Rui, Cheng Qili, and Tao Xiaofei. In the martial arts club, with Qin Rui's good example, 5 inner disciples had received 12 hours of private instruction. Wu Ting and other students also had rosy cheeks, flexible legs, and strong bodies. At this time, the youth tournament was about to begin. Chapter 247. At the lakeside of People's Park, Lu Qing retracted his stance and exhaled a breath of air like an arrow. Suddenly, a series of popping sounds came from his body, spreading throughout his muscles, tendons, and bones. They were all connected, almost becoming one. Phew, I still need some time. Lu Qing muttered to himself with some regret. In the process of constantly condensing and improving his martial arts will, because of his mastery of meditation and the realization of withdraw through the Jin Dan, his tempering progress was far beyond normal, just as Gieserscher had said. In another 10 or 20 days of grinding, he would be able to achieve complete unity of force in his body. Shaking his head, he put this matter to the back of his mind. He planted his feet and sank into a sitting position. With this sinking movement, his willpower surged, connecting his body and spirit, making his mind clear and aware of every detail. Following which, this willpower that dared to face everything for the things he cherished suddenly condensed and sank into his dantian. The guiding spirit suddenly converged and showed signs of rotation. In an instant, Lu Cheng's qi blood force, and even the feeling of being alive strangely contracted into a ball. They circled around each other, maintaining a balance. Boom. The balance disintegrated, and the ball exploded violently, spewing out endless power. Bam. Lu Cheng took a step forward and threw a punch. The airflow in the air exploded, setting off a gust of wind, causing weak but real waves to rise and fall on the surface of the lake. This blow was close to the power of a Dan stage explosion. If Lu Cheng changed to using Jindan Revolution as the fulcrum, he would be able to complete force concentration, not just a ball. In other words, in that situation, he would be considered a real Dan stage mighty one. But because of the combination of cultivation, his qi, blood, force, and spirit revolved around his willpower or Jindan as the core, maintaining a balance. There was no way to truly condense them into a single point. Or rather, there was no way to do so at the moment. At most, he could only achieve the level of a miniature version of Jindan. Lu Cheng even suspected that if they were to condense into a single point during the rotation, something terrible would happen. Without the corresponding information, he could only take it one step at a time. After a few rounds of continuous training, Lu Cheng was completely exhausted. He finished his morning homework and jogged home. In this youth tournament, he did not intend to use his golden core. He would fight with his own strength to polish his will and refine his martial arts. He also wanted to see where he could rank among the young martial artists in the province without cheating. Cuckoo still doesn't know that I've already grasped the meaning of withdraw. She doesn't know that I've reached the initial stage of force concentration. I'll give her a surprise when she watches the live broadcast of the match. In the last VIP class training session in July, with his hands behind his back, Lu Cheng walked around the familiar students and guided them on how to exert their strength. At the end of the session, he clapped his hands and smiled. We'll meet again in August. Everyone, don't slack off. Maintain the state of training 3 times a week. Yao Ruiwei, especially you, if you really slack off, your weight will rebound. I'm not trying to scare you. This little fatty had more perseverance than he had expected. He had actually persevered all the way. His weight had already dropped by more than 10 kilograms, and his training load was no longer special. He had caught up with the other students. Hearing Lu Cheng's teasing, Yao Ruiwei scratched the back of his head and laughed. Sir Lu, if my weight rebounded by half a kilogram, it'll be my loss. They were all teenagers. After getting familiar with Lu Cheng, they felt that calling him Coach Lu was too distant. Someone took the lead and started calling him Sir on their own accord. Yao Ruiwei had not only lost weight, but also a little bit of inferiority. He gradually opened up his mind and displayed the vigor that a person of his age should have. After the laughter that followed his words, Wu Ting asked in high spirits, "What's the matter?" "Sir Lu, I heard that you're going to participate in this provincial youth tournament?" "Yeah," Lu Cheng answered without much care. Wu Ting cheered. "My dad's going to take me to watch the match live. I'll cheer for you." "I want to go too," Zhang Qiufan said enviously. She was not yet 13, and did not even have the capacity for civil conduct. Even if she wanted to go out, she could not buy a ticket. Wu Ting took good care of this little girl. She immediately suggested, "Why don't I ask your parents to let you come with us to Gaofun for a few days? See, you've exposed yourself. Are you going to play or cheer for me?" Lu Cheng shook his head with a smile. The students in the VIP class were all well off. After hearing Wu Ting's words, they began to talk among themselves. 1 or 2 of them wanted to join in the fun. Only Li Lei walked to Lu Cheng's side and said with admiration and doubt, "Sir Lu, I've had a few matches with other students in the VIP class these days. You won all of them?" Lu Cheng asked with a smile. Yes. But you haven't taught us any powerful moves. We just practiced the basic skills over and over again. Li Lei was very puzzled. Lu Qing laughed. If your basic skills are not solid enough, even the most powerful moves are zero. As long as you don't fight with students who have come to summer school several times, you won't have a big problem. Of course, it won't be a big problem. The students in the other VIP classes followed the principle of physical fitness. Their moves and styles were cool to satisfy the teenagers' desires. They just practiced the basic skills casually. When it came to a real fight, they were very weak. Okay. Li Lei nodded thoughtfully. He made up his mind to practice with Sir Lu in August. After returning home in the afternoon, Lu Qing began to pack his luggage. He was waiting for Jiang Fei's car to go to Gaofan. Fatty Jiang, Old Cheng and Tao Xiaofei had nothing to do, so they wanted to watch the youth tournament and cheer for him on the spot. After he was done, he took a picture and sent it to Yan Zhika with a smile. Embark on the journey. I'm so angry, but I still have to smile and cheer for you. Yan Zhika said with tears in her eyes. I want to watch it live. Lu Qing chuckled and typed a reply. Even if you didn't go to Jiangnan, Empress Dowager probably wouldn't let you go to Gaofan to watch the tournament. That's true. Yan Zhika said with both hands supporting her chin. Then I'll try to master the inner practice of Meteor Force as soon as possible and come back early. Well, I'll find Sister Jingjing and go directly to Gaofan. You can't be eliminated too early. Lu Qing sent an emoji with a red scarf wrapped around his head. I'll hold on until you come back. That should be the last few days of the tournament. Good boy, I'll give you candy when the time comes. Yan Zhika sent an emoji with a hook finger. Okay, by the way, what's Sister Jingjing's supernatural ability? You kept forgetting to tell me. Lu Qing asked casually. Yan Zhika replied with a serious expression. Call me Coach Yan. Lu Qing couldn't help but smile. Yes, please enlighten me, Coach Yan. Sister Jingjing's supernatural ability is to affect the surrounding air and create visual and auditory errors. During a battle, a wrong judgment is very dangerous. Yan Zhika didn't hesitate to sell her best friend out. They chatted for a while. Lu Qing heard the sound of the key opening the door. He stuck his head out and found that his parents had come back early. Behind them were Qi Yunfei, Chen Xiaoxiao and Ma Shi. Oh no, I'll have to sleep on the sofa again. This was Lu Cheng's first thought. Then he realized that since he was going to Gaofun, it didn't matter if the room was occupied by the girls. Dad, Mom, why are you back so early? He asked in confusion. Qi Feng nagged. It's all because of your dad. A few days ago, he suddenly said that it's rare for you to participate in a competition in the province. We should go and see the scene. You and your father are like two peas in a pod. Why didn't you tell me in advance? I applied for annual leave and found someone to replace me. I almost couldn't win. Whim. Lu Jixing laughed dryly. Dad and Mom seemed indifferent before, but in fact, they planned to go to Gaofan directly to cheer for me? Lu Qing felt warm in his heart. He asked with concern. Have you booked a hotel? Cici and the others are going too? Yes. Brother Lu Qing, we're going to see your heroism live. Qi Yunfei answered exaggeratedly. Qi Feng continued. The hotel was booked. When your dad went to apply for annual leave, Fatty Guo was very happy. He said that his family would also go to Gaofan for a holiday and watch the competition. What a coincidence. He had an agreement with a 5-star hotel. Your dad had just finished the technical changes in the factory. He should have received a bonus. Well, he took 2 rooms as the bonus. She usually called Guomin Fatty Gua or Cheapskate Gua as long as there were no outsiders. Anyway, we have to pay for the accommodation in Gaofun. The money we save will be the bonus. Besides, it's our first time staying in a 5-star hotel. It's good to experience it. Lu Jixing comforted her generously. Qi Feng rolled her eyes at him. It's more than 1,000 yuan a night. Don't you feel the pinch? Ching, why don't we change rooms? You can stay there. No, the hotel I chose is close to the competition venue. It's quiet and convenient. Lu Qing refused his mother's kindness. He wanted to let his parents enjoy themselves. At this moment his phone rang. It was from Jiang Fei. Chung, we're outside the community. Have you packed up? Fatty Jiang lowered his voice and snickered. Old Ching knew that you were going to participate in the competition, so he persuaded Monitor and Chow Lele to go to Gaofen together. Great. Old Ching, you've grown up. I'll take Tao Xiaofei's car later. Lu Qing answered in surprise. Then he realized, no, my parents are going to Gaofen too. I'll take the train with them. Are you afraid that 2 cars won't fit you? Just return the tickets. Don't waste money. Jiang Fei suggested casually. Lu Qing counted the number of people and nodded. Okay, I'll tell them. Qi Fang was happy to have a free ride, and it was her son's classmate who offered it. She asked Ma Shi to return the tickets, took the luggage and went to the gate of the community. Dad, Mom, take Xiaofei's car. Lu Qing first greeted Tao Xiaofei and exchanged some pleasantries. Then he arranged for his parents, Qi Yunfei and Chen Xiaoxiao, to sit in the BMW. He led Ma Shi to Jiang Fei's car and saw that Qing Qili was in the passenger seat, and Qiu Hailin and Chow Lele were in the back. Qing, you can do it. The 2 female students cheered him on with a smile. They didn't believe Fatty Jiang's description of Lu Qing as invincible. They didn't have the curiosity to confirm it, so they just wanted to join in the fun. Thank you. Lu Qing answered politely. He turned to his cousin and said, Cici, you get in. After the arrangement, he suddenly realized a serious problem. He didn't count himself in the head count just now. The seats were full, and he hadn't gotten in yet. Qing, how are you going? Jiang Fei looked at him in confusion. He couldn't ask them to get off, could he? Besides, he had to go on the highway. It was not good to overload. Lu Qing was stunned for a few seconds. He said hesitantly, I'll take the bus with the martial arts club. Okay. Jiang Fei waved his hand without hesitation and started the car. Tao Xiaofei followed closely behind. They were very confident in Lu Qing's mobility. So straightforward. Watching the cheering group leave, the protagonist, who was cheered on, stayed in the same place, kissed by the hot sun, and his body was messy in the wind. Who was the main character? Wu Ting packed her luggage and followed her father to pick up Wei Renjie and his secretary. Little girl, are you very happy? Wei Renjie asked with a chuckle. This time, he would personally supervise the martial arts clubs in Xioshan and select the members who would participate in the special training based on their actual performance in the challenge tournament. The main player had been selected, and it was the one recommended by Clubmaster Chu Weikai. Wu Ting answered excitedly, because our coach will participate in the competition too. Your coach? Lu Qing? Not bad, not bad. Wei Renjie answered perfunctorily. With his status, of course, he didn't know the specific operation model of the martial arts club summer class. He thought that the VIP class was the same as studying under a well-known mentor, and most of the time, the teaching assistant and others would act as his agent. Wu Qinggui was a little confused. He opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say anything. Lu Qing first communicated with them through the phone, and then he finally saw the Gushan Martial Arts Club's bus. As soon as he got on the bus, Su Rongfei and the other inner disciples stood up one after another and greeted him respectfully. Brother Lu, everyone had seen the effect of his guidance during this time. Lu Qing was too lazy to correct their greetings. He nodded to them one by one, and came to Qin Rui's side. He smiled at Chu Weikai and Dai Linfeng behind him. Clubmaster Chu, sorry to trouble you. What's the trouble? In name, you are still a member of our martial arts club. Chu Weikai laughed. Lu Qing didn't say much. He turned around and sat down, leaning against the backrest and stretching his body. At this moment, the door closed and the bus started to move. So many people had been waiting for so long, and it seemed that they were waiting for him alone. Target the youth tournament. Chapter 248. The scenery outside the window flashed by quickly. The afternoon sun was scorching and glaring. The Gushan Martial Arts School disciples automatically opened the curtains to make the carriage dark and comfortable for sleeping. Lu Qing basked in the little warmth through the curtains, and enjoyed the breeze of the air conditioner above his head. He closed his eyes and recalled the various experiences since he started practicing martial arts, settling down all kinds of emotions. Until recently, he finally understood the true meaning of the words his master had said. Human body Big Dan meant that all the forces in the body were as one, forming a whole. Round meant that the force chi blood and spirit were smooth and transparent. Bright meant that one had to understand why to fight and put it into practice. Step by step, one would have a firm will, a clear mind, and a bright future. Body refining was a certain limit of the body. Dan's stage began to involve one's will and spirit to break through the shackles. While he was reminiscing, he heard the inner disciples of the Gushin martial arts school talking to each other excitedly. I hope we don't meet a strong opponent too early and try to enter the third round. Su Rongfei turned to Qin Rue and said. Qin Rue answered with anticipation and nervousness. Among us, I'm afraid only senior brother Dai can enter the third round. Don't you want to? Su Rongfei laughed. Qin Rue blurted out. Why not? It's such a glorious thing. I want to enter the fourth round and get more attention. The purpose of the youth tournament was to encourage the young martial artists in the province to work hard. It was different from the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. Therefore, the first 3 rounds were all passed to the professionals, so that the amateurs could fully perform and train each other. For the amateurs, this was also a way to show off to each other. What? You were eliminated in the second round of the youth tournament? Oh, I was lucky enough to enter the fourth round and meet a professional 9th pin. When everyone was of the same rank, these things were one of the advantages to distinguish between the top and the bottom. Listening to these words and feeling the desire, Lu Cheng, who was resting with his eyes closed, smiled slightly. For himself, his initial goal was to get more prize money and nothing else. Now that he had opened the door to the Dan stage, there were some things he could think about. For a moment he was a little complacent. Chu Weikai also had his eyes closed as he observed the excitement of this group of inner disciples. He thought to himself, it's good to be young, full of hope, full of vigor. Full of youthful vigor. He mulled over these 4 words and suddenly felt as if he had overlooked something very important. Chu Weikai clenched his fists and opened his eyes. He looked sharply at Lu Cheng, who was right in front of him. Perhaps it was because of their frequent contact, but she had actually turned a blind eye to the changes in his body. His qi and blood had originally been vigorous to the extreme, exuding a sense of valiance, sharpness, and vigor. With one look, one could tell that he was the kind of person who could fight very well. But now, he was calm and gentle, and his qi and blood were restrained. He had returned to his normal, ordinary self. Could it be? Chu Wei's pupils shrank. He couldn't believe his own guess. However, the changes in front of him clearly showed the answer. This was too exaggerated. He muttered to himself, feeling both shocked and relieved. The hotel booked by the Gushin Martial Arts School was called Tianshui Hotel. It was not far from Gaofen City's martial arts arena. The hotel was quiet and peaceful, and the price was not too expensive. It was only 400 yuan a night. Lu Cheng also chose this hotel. He stayed in a room with a big bed on the 12th floor. He put down his luggage and stood by the floor-to-ceiling window. He drew the curtain and looked at the arena that was shaped like a beetle. He suddenly felt relaxed and happy. He had just taken a picture of Yenjika and sent it to her when he received a call from Qin Rue. Hey Cheng, do you want to have dinner together? My master is going to spend a lot of money today to prepare a feast for everyone. Qin Rue laughed. Lu Cheng stood by the window with one hand in his pocket. He smiled and said, no thanks. My parents and Jiang Fei are here too. I have to go with them. Look at my memory. Qin Rue slapped his forehead. Have fun then. After hanging up the phone, Lu Cheng immediately called Jiang Fei. Hey Fatty Jiang, I'll treat you to dinner later. Don't go anywhere. Fatty Jiang and the others were also staying in a good hotel, because Tao Xiaofei had volunteered to pay for them. However, they were not staying in the same hotel as his parents. Jiang Fei was a little surprised. Cheng, when did you become so polite and proactive? I thought you would only treat me if I shamelessly brought it up. Do you want to eat or not? Forget it if you don't want to eat. Don't talk nonsense. Lu Cheng smiled grumpily. Tao Xiaofei and Fatty Jiang drove his parents and cousin to Gaofen to cheer him on. If he didn't treat them to a meal, he would feel guilty. Of course, it was all thanks to Coach Yan's influence that he could have such social awareness. Jiang Fei laughed and said, "Of course. You didn't treat us to the meal when you were dating Yin Zhika." He was so forgetful that he couldn't remember that sour feeling of loss. "Okay, I'll treat you together with Ko later." Lu Qing agreed readily, thinking that his girlfriend was coming to Gaofun. The sky was high and the Empress was far away. Jiang Fei nodded with satisfaction. "Then we'll pick you up and take you to your parents' place?" "No, I'll go there directly. You guys calculate the time and meet there." Lu Qing walked out while talking on the phone. He was wearing a short-sleeved white t-shirt, beige trousers and vintage brown leather shoes. He looked very casual. On the way to Mingqi International Hotel, Coach Yan, who often came to Gaofun, told him what to eat. It was a Nanyan restaurant nearby. He arrived at the 5-star hotel before the evening rush hour. Because he had to swipe his card to enter the elevator, he waited for a while and got a free ride from others. Finally, he arrived at the 17th floor and knocked on the door of his parents' room. "What 5-star? It's no different from an ordinary hotel. The rooms are a little bigger and the things are a little newer." Qi Fong complained to her son, still worried about the bonus. Lu Qing stepped on the soft carpet and agreed with his mother. "Exactly. The environment is cleaner. Can't we sleep anywhere? Dad, Mom, you guys clean up. Fatty Jiang and Tao Xiaofei are coming. I'm going to treat them to a meal." Lu Jisheng adjusted his glasses and said with satisfaction, "You really should treat them to a meal. Cheng, you've really matured." After a while, the 3 girls finished tidying up. The 6 of them entered the elevator and went to the first floor. Ding! The elevator door opened on the first floor, and a few familiar faces appeared. Guomin was waiting for the elevator with his wife Wan Rongli, daughter Guohuairo, son Guohuayan, and bodyguard Jia Tong. "Old Lu, the whole family is here?" Guomin's eyes lit up when he recognized Lu Jisheng and Qi Fong. He smiled and greeted them. Wan Rongli and Guohuairo raised their chins to show restraint. At this moment, their eyes suddenly froze when they saw Lu Qing standing next to Lu Jisheng with a gentle smile. In an instant, the words "he's here" and "he's gone" flashed in the minds of Guohuairo and the others, as well as the figure that floated away in front of them. Lu Qing smiled and nodded slightly as a form of greeting. Guomin and the others were surprised and puzzled. They subconsciously smiled and nodded back. "It's really him. Why is he here?" Lu Jisheng smiled reservedly. "Mr. Guo, I thought you would only arrive tomorrow. This is my son Lu Qing. These are my relatives' children. Come greet Uncle Guo." Lu Qing immediately took a step forward and said with a slight smile, "Hello, Uncle Guo." "Hello, hello." Guomin stared blankly at Lu Qing, who was dressed in casual clothes and wearing a clear and gentle smile. Uncle Guohuairo and the others were also like clay puppets, blankly responding to Lu Cheng's greeting. "Mr. Guo, we have something to do, so we'll leave first." Lu Jisheng held the elevator button for them. Okay. Guomin still gave the same answer. Lu Qing didn't say anything. He put his hands in his pockets and leisurely followed his father to the side door, which was the closest way to Nanyan restaurant. Watching the family leave, Guomin suddenly took a breath and came back to life. Arriving at the side door, Qi Yunfei, Chen Xiaoxiao, and Ma Shi were immediately shocked by the noise and liveliness. The door was covered with a red carpet that stretched all the way to the stairs. There were cameras on both sides and men and women holding banners and signs. What are they doing?" Qi Yunfei said to herself blankly. Lu Qing glanced at the scene and also didn't know what was going on. But at this moment, he saw a familiar figure coming in from the door. It should be said that he was familiar with him, but he definitely wasn't familiar with him. The newcomer was the top seed of this youth tournament, the 23-year-old professional 7th pin Dan stage Zhang Zhutong. There were no talented fighters like Peng Liyun and Run Li in this generation of Xing province, not even close. Zhang Zhutong had reached professional 7th pin in the Dan stage at the age of 23, which meant that he could reach the inhuman stage. It wasn't impossible for him to reach the physical invulnerability stage. Zhang Zhutong was about the same height as Lu Qing. Wearing a white martial arts suit, he looked exceptionally handsome. His eyes were sharp and unfathomable. With a smile on his face, he looked around proudly. Walking on the red carpet with his glamorous female companion, he calmly withstood the flashes of the various guns and cannons. At this moment, a girl beside Qi Yunfei answered her question and said excitedly, "Banquet. Youth tournament banquet. Don't you know?" "No." Qi Yunfei shook her head blankly. The girl casually explained, "Isn't the youth tournament the day after tomorrow? The organizing committee is holding a banquet for the seeded fighters. Many experts and celebrities will come." As she spoke, she raised the banner and screamed, "Hey hey! Zhang Zhutong!" Qi Yunfei suddenly understood and glanced at her cousin. She wanted to say something but was too shy to do so. Chen Xiaoxiao asked confusedly, "Brother Lu Cheng, why didn't you get an invitation?" Lu Cheng watched Zhang Zhutong turn to the stairs and shook his head with a smile. "Maybe I'm not qualified enough." Chapter 249. Lu Cheng didn't complain about the lack of qualifications. He had already known that there would be 12 seeded players in this youth tournament. He had even watched a lot of promotional videos. That was why he felt familiar with Zhang Zhutong. The standard for seeded players was professional 7th pin, professional 9th pin, and several famous fighters of the professional 9th pin with supernatural abilities in the province. Not to mention whether the organizing committee would search the videos of every fighter of the professional 9th pin. Lu Cheng's recent performance was not enough for him to be selected. In other words, the minimum requirement for seeded players was professional 8th pin. Lu Cheng obviously didn't reach this level before the summer vacation. Of course, things were different now. He didn't feel that he was worse than some of the seeded players. Hearing his answer, Chen Xiaoxiao suddenly realized that she had asked a question that she shouldn't have. Of all things, she had touched a sore spot. Hurriedly she said, "Brother Lu Cheng, you will definitely be qualified in the future." I should be qualified now. Lu Cheng thought. He didn't mind the little girl's unintentional question. He smiled and said, "I hope so. Let's go back to the main entrance. We can't get out of here." Because they didn't know the strength of their son cousin, Qi Fong, Ma Shi, and the others forgot about the qualification for the banquet. They excitedly discussed the situation just now and followed Lu Cheng back to the main entrance. They went to a Nanyan restaurant nearby. On the way, Lu Cheng seized the time to ask little Ming, "Talker, are you there? If you have something to say, just say it. Don't ask me if I'm here." Kai Zongming answered casually, "I'm treating some high school classmates, my parents, and my cousin. I feel that the atmosphere will be awkward. What should I do?" Lu Cheng described the difficulty. Kai Zongming chuckled. "Make fun of yourself. This is the only way out. You're the connection point between the two parties. Your parents will definitely be interested in your embarrassing moments in school. Your classmates can also get in on it, and vice versa." Lu Cheng felt that it made sense at first. Then he was shocked. "My mom will tell all my embarrassing stories if they continue to talk like this. How can I show up in front of my classmates? What a bad idea." He didn't even have the nerve to tell Ku about some embarrassing things. Kai Zongming threw his head back and laughed. "This is the only move I have left. Good luck to you." After gnashing his teeth for a while, Lu Cheng consulted Coach Yen. After combining the opinions of both parties, he gradually came up with a draft on how to lead the conversation. He had already booked a private room in advance. After meeting Jiang Fei, Qiu Hailin, and the others outside the restaurant, they walked straight in and took their seats. He started the conversation with self-deprecating and started talking about their high school days. The atmosphere gradually became more comfortable and less restrained. When the dishes were about to be served, Lu Cheng got up and walked out of the private room to the bathroom. When he was washing his hands outside, he saw Chow Lele looking for him. "Here." He waved his hand. As Chow Lele approached, she muttered, "There's something wrong with the design here. I can't see the logo over there." She and Lu Cheng had been sitting at the same table for a long time, so they had a good relationship. Therefore, she spoke casually. Seeing that there was no one around, she asked curiously, "Lu Cheng, I heard that you're working part-time as a coach in Gushin Martial Arts School?" According to Fatty Jiang, he was already of professional 9th pin. Then he must be very powerful in Xiushan, right? Yeah. Why do you ask this all of a sudden? Lu Qing asked with a puzzled smile. Chow Lei pouted and said self-deprecatingly, "No one cares about me when I'm studying in a university in another city. I've gained almost 5 kilograms this year. I think I need to work out to lose weight." Lu Qing took a closer look and found that this petite and dainty deskmate of his did indeed have a round face. He held back his laughter and didn't tease her about her weight. He answered seriously, "I don't know much about fitness, but Gushin Martial Arts School has a special fitness coach." Chow Lei was already mentally prepared to be teased and laughed at, but unexpectedly, Lu Qing didn't mention it at all. She looked at him in surprise and suddenly said with emotion, "Lu Qing, you've changed so much in just 1 year. I almost can't remember what you looked like in high school. Compared to you, other students, including me, seem to be still in the same place. I've just seen more of the world." Today, Lu Qing was tall and straight with a gentle temperament. He was confident, calm, and elegant in his speech and behavior. He didn't look like a freshman at all. "Should I say thank you for your compliment?" Lu Qing answered with a smile. "It's not a compliment, it's the truth." Chow Lei smiled reservedly and asked curiously, "I heard from Fatty Jiang that you have a girlfriend? She must be very outstanding, right? Only then would they be a good match." "Yes." Thinking of Coach Yan, Lu Qing smiled from the bottom of his heart, and his eyes softened a little. Looking at Lu Qing like this, Chow Lei was envious and had the impulse to fall in love. She also wanted to have a boy who would show such expression and look when talking about her. Lu Qing didn't talk much with her. He waved his hand and turned back to the private room. Based on their long experience of deskmates, such an attitude was actually a little strange, but Lu Qing did it deliberately. First, after they went to universities in other cities, they didn't have much contact. Occasionally, they would exchange a few words in the class group, or Chow Lei would ask about computer problems in private. Second, he felt that it was enough to maintain the relationship with other girls at this level since he had a girlfriend. The Nanyun cuisine in this restaurant was indeed very good, and it was also very suitable for the people of Xing province. The dinner was very enjoyable, and many of Lu Cheng's embarrassing stories were dug up, which became the favorite topic of Chiu Hailin, Chow Lei, and Qi Yunfei. Fortunately, it's still under control. Lu Qing thought happily. After sending his parents and 3 cousins to the hotel, he took Tao Xiaofei's car back to Tianshui Hotel. At this time, the banquet hall of the youth tournament was still brightly lit. The next morning, Lu Qing, who had finished his training, led a group of cheering fans who hadn't watched the challenge tournament live to the Gaofan Martial Arts Stadium, introducing them to various aspects. The layout of the youth tournament was similar to that of the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. It was also divided into the central ring and 9 smaller rings around it, each with a big screen showing the battles on it. When Lu Jisheng, Qi Fang, and the others gradually adapted to the atmosphere of the martial arts competition, Lu Qing suddenly heard someone shouting not far away, "Sir Lu!" Turning his head, he saw Wu Ting jumping and waving at him. Her 2 ponytails swayed back and forth. She was very excited. "What a coincidence!" he responded with a smile. Then he saw Chairman Wei Renjie and several men he didn't know standing next to Wu Ting. One of them was full of vigor and blood, and his eyes were terrifyingly sharp. "Is he Sun Yixing, the mighty 9th fighter recommended by Clubmaster Chu?" Lu Qing nodded thoughtfully. Although this professional 9th pin fighter looked ordinary, he was quite famous in the past. During the ranking event, he defeated several fighters from the surrounding cities, and won a place for Xiushan to enter the 9th pin. At that time, he was only 20 years old. Wu Ting replied with a bright smile, "Not a coincidence, not at all. I've been looking for you, Sir Lu." At this time, because of Wu Ting's movement, Wei Renjie, Wu Qinggui, and Sun Yixing all looked over and saw Lu Qing leading a group of people, old and young. He looked more like a tour guide than a fighter. "Lu, you're here too?" Wei Renjie didn't call him by his full name since they had met several times. "Yeah." Lu Qing answered frankly and said with a smile, "But first I have to show my parents around and have a look." After a few words of greeting, they separated. Wei Renjie's secretary ran back with a document in his hand. "Chairman, this is the number of matches for the Xiushan fighters today." Wei Renjie glanced at it and handed it to Sun Yixing. He smiled and said, "Thank you." Sunday he couldn't tell whether it was good or bad. Sun Yixing laughed and said, "It's my pleasure." Then he sighed and said, "If it weren't for this, no professional fighter would come to watch the first 3 rounds." In a dark bedroom, a beautiful woman woke up lazily. She found that there was no one beside her, and the temperature was cold. She put on her pajamas and walked to the window. She looked outside and saw Zhang Zhutong practicing martial arts in the garden. His upper body was naked, and his muscles were exposed from time to time. Drops of sweat trickled down his body. "Can't he stop for a day?" the beautiful woman complained. In a park, Xing Jingjing stood in a dark corner with her eyes closed, practicing one move after another. In a martial arts club, a young man with a shallow scar on his face stood quietly. His body was empty, as if he didn't exist. Beside a pond full of blooming lotus flowers, a young man with a few tufts of white hair grabbed the air and made crayfish in the mud fly up one by one. 3 days later, the morning sun was just right, shining brightly in the room. Lu Qing took a shower to wash away the traces of his morning exercise. He put on his white martial arts suit with black edges and stood by the window, looking down at the martial arts arena in the shape of a beetle. He slowly adjusted the buttons on his wrist. Today was the start of the 4th round. After adjusting his clothes, he turned around and picked up his phone. As expected, he saw a voice message from Yanzhika, who was far away in Jiangnan. He put the phone to his ear and moved his thumb slightly. He heard her soft and clear voice like the first time. "Lu Qing. Come on, Lu Qing." Compared to Yanling, the current encouragement was more tender and sweet. The corners of Lu Cheng's mouth curled up. He listened to the message several times, then suddenly put away his phone. He grabbed the number plate on the table, opened the door and strode out, basking in the sunshine. The number plate was wobbling in his hand. There was a unique pattern and a simple number on it. 18. Chapter 250. He walked out of the room and took the elevator to the lobby on the 1st floor. Lu Cheng saw that the Gushin Martial Arts School had already gathered there. "Cheng, do you want to go to the stadium together?" Qin Rui saw Lu Qing out of the corner of his eye and shouted immediately. In the first 3 rounds of the competition, Lu Cheng, who had familiarized himself with the adjusted fighting style, had reached a higher level. Although he was still a long way from reaching amateur 9th pin, as an amateur, as long as he didn't meet the likes of Dai Linfeng or Zhou Zhengyao, he could easily defeat an amateur 2nd pin fighter in the 1st round. In the 2nd round, he defeated an amateur 3rd pin fighter without any bloodshed. In the 3rd round, he met a strong opponent and won a hard battle. He became one of the 3 disciples of Gushin Martial Arts School who made it to the 4th round, and was praised by the chairman Wei Renjie and the leader of the preliminaries, Sun Yixing. This made him feel refreshed and more confident. He was even more grateful to Lu Cheng. "Yeah, let's go together. It's much more convenient to take the bus." Su Rongfei also said cheerfully. He and Dai Linfeng were the other 2 disciples who made it to the 4th round. This was partly due to luck. The opponents they met were not too strong, and partly due to Lu Cheng's serious guidance. As for the other inner disciples, as long as they received individual guidance, their results were more or less better than expected. Real knowledge comes from practice. They already admired this unassuming young fighter from the bottom of their hearts. The money in their pockets jumped with eagerness. Lu Qing looked at them and responded leisurely, "No need." "There's no need. I'll run over and warm up." He waved his hand and strode out of the lobby. He ran rhythmically along the road to the stadium. Seeing him off, Su Rongfei sighed with emotion. "Why do I feel that Brother Lu is becoming more and more like a master? He can make it to the top 16 this time, right?" In his opinion, Lu Qing was invincible among those below professional 8th pin. As long as he was lucky, he had a great chance to make it to the top 16. Qin Rui echoed. "I think it's no problem, unless he meets the 12-seeded fighters in advance." "Haha, then we can see Qing in the role of call." The significance of seeded fighters was that they could avoid each other before the top 32. Behind them, Chu Weikai listened with a smile. He shook his head slightly and whispered to himself, "Top 16? Hey, Stepping into the Gaofen Martial Arts Stadium, Lu Qing went straight to the big screen and looked at the rolling list of matchups. After waiting for a few minutes, he keenly saw his name because of his keen ears and eyes. Ring 6, Round 4. Number 18, Lu Qing, 19 years old, professional 9th pin. Number 29, Xiongyu, 21 years old, professional 9th pin. Lu Qing clicked his tongue and sighed. In the fourth round, there were not many matches between professional 9th pin fighters, and he was lucky enough to get one. He took a closer look and realized that the fight between him and Xiongyu was not on the broadcast list. That was because the top seed Zhang Zhutong was facing a challenge from a professional 9th pin fighter at the same time. Lu Qing lowered his head and typed quickly on the keyboard. He sent a match message to Ku and sent her a pitiful emoji. Without Coach Yan's blessing, I got a professional 9th pin opponent in my first match. Ha 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 ha. Yanzhika did not hide her pride at all. Wait for me to come back and give you the glory of your moral character. After typing this sentence, she said, but why do I feel that Xiongyu is the one with bad luck? Facing Cheng, a freak who has gathered his martial arts will and mastered the core force of the ice sect, is not much different from challenging a seeded fighter in advance. Don't underestimate your opponent. Lu Qing replied with a serious expression. Do you think it's easy for me to act pitiful? Okay, let me search for his information for you. Yanzhika combed her hair and quickly searched for his information. With a professional 9th pin fighter in a province, there must be relevant information on the internet. Lu Qing did not need to wait in line at the service desk. He went directly to Ring 6 and waited for Coach Yan's reply. In the process, he sent the match information to his parents and Jiang Fei. Number 18, Lu Qing. Xiongyu looked at the big screen and read out his opponent's name softly. It was a very strange name. His body looked thin, but in fact, it was as heavy as a mountain. His face was round, and his facial features were close together, making him look very funny. He was a member of Gaofun's Jianxian Hall, and he came from the local famous Zhenshan Martial Arts Club. His Wuji godly shattering fist was complete in form and meaning, and its essence was sufficient. Never heard of him. He should be a professional 9th pin fighter in another city. Just search for him. Xiongyu's companion was a delicate girl with thin eyebrows. She was dressed like a regular white-collar worker, but her chi and blood were at their limit. She was in high spirits and looked fierce and strong. She and Xiongyu were surrounded by several reserve members of Jianxian Hall. When they heard Sister Ying's order, they immediately took out their mobile phones and searched for information. Xiongyu was too lazy to do it himself since he had a follower to do it for him. He smiled and asked, Sister Ying, your match is in the afternoon? He was very respectful to Han Ying because her brother was one of the vice leaders of Jianxian Hall, and the second seed of this youth tournament. He was a 25-year-old professional 7th pin fighter of the Dan stage, Han Jifei. Yes, an amateur first pin fighter. Han Ying answered casually. Brother Jifei's opponent seems to be an amateur first pin fighter as well. Xiongyu smiled with uncertainty. In this kind of voluntary challenge tournament, it was rare to give up. When encountering a strong opponent, one would enter the arena with the mentality of giving it a try. It was not that they thought they could win, but that they could brag when they went back. I used to fight with a professional 7th pin fighter of the Dan stage. As for the specific number of moves, it was not for outsiders to know. While they were chatting, the reserve members looked more and more serious. One of them suddenly said, Sister Ying, Brother Xiong, this Lu Qing is not easy to deal with. He tried hard to think of a not too harsh description. Not easy to deal with. Xiongyu frowned and took the other's mobile phone. He looked at it again. Han Ying also moved her head closer. As they watched, the two of them paused and looked at each other, noticing the astonishment in each other's eyes. He is not only not easy to deal with, he is simply hard to deal with. Impossible to deal with. When did such a 19-year-old top professional 9th pin fighter appear in Xing province? He also has the supernatural ability of ice and fire, and has mastered the tremor punch and one of the core forces of the ice sect. Brother Xiong, you are so lucky. Han Ying sighed and said with a bitter smile. Xiongyu hissed, this guy is ranked in Songcheng. Damn it. Why did he come back to participate in the youth tournament? After venting his anger, he took a few deep breaths and said, "Good. If I don't encounter a strong opponent, how can I squeeze out my potential? So what if he has the tremor punch and the core force of the ice sect? It's useless if he can't hit him. We are all professional ninth pin fighters. Is there an unbridgeable gap between us? If we don't fight, how can we know we can't win? I am a strong professional ninth pin fighter." Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang led Chen Xiaoxiao and Jiang Fei to the seats near the sixth ring when they saw the long spears and short cannons moving towards the center ring. After sitting down in 2 rows, the young people who were used to checking the internet took out their mobile phones and searched for the information of Xiongyu, Lu Cheng's opponent. "He looks so strong," Chao Lele blurted out after studying for a while. She had little contact with martial arts. This was the first time she saw a fight video of a strong professional ninth pin fighter. Naturally, she was shocked and worried about Lu Cheng. Is he strong? Qi Fang's ears were very sharp. Her heart was hanging in the air. She asked in a hurry. His son was so unlucky that he got the little king in the first round? If he was eliminated in the first round, he would be very sad and painful. He is very strong. Qiu Hailin watched several videos and took a deep breath. Her head was still exposed to the air. Tao Xiaofei heard their surprise and said disdainfully, "What's so good about this? You can search Brother Lu's videos. He is much stronger than this. Making a fuss over nothing. Yeah, compared to Brother Lu, he is just SOSO." Qi Yunfei and Chen Xiaoxiao said in unison. Really? Qiu Hailin and Chao Lele looked at each other and realized that they might have overlooked something very important. They quickly searched for the videos regardless of the traffic. The more they watched, the brighter their eyes became. They couldn't believe that the powerful fighter in the videos was Lu Cheng, who was always smiling and polite. How could he be so strong all of a sudden? They couldn't tell at all. "Oh, is this Cheng?" Qi Fang stretched her head and looked at Chao Lele's phone. "I can't recognize him." In the words of the TV series, her son was very handsome. Jiang Fei couldn't help but laugh. He lowered his voice and said to Cheng Qili, "Old Cheng, is this a realistic version of beating his mother until she can't recognize him?" Cheng Qili ignored him and looked at Qiu Hailin and Chao Lele's eyes and expressions worriedly. He was not afraid of anything, but he suddenly felt ashamed of his own inferiority. When there was a comparison, there would be hurt. Lu Jisheng quietly listened to their discussion and glanced at the videos on the phone. He vaguely understood one thing. Fatigue was specially called yesterday to say that the bonus would still be the same. In Lu Cheng's fan forum, a little fairy posted a post. The 3rd Youth Fighter Championship of Xing Province, 4th round, Lu Cheng vs Xiongyu, professional 9th pin. Unparalleled Dragon King was the first to appear. Adjusting his sunglasses expression, he said, "I knew Lu Cheng would participate in this competition. Hey, my girlish heart can't wait." Eternal Nightfall. Yan Shaoling excitedly opened the official website of the Youth Fighter Championship and looked for the broadcast address. After more than 2 months without a competition, the forum, which had not yet stabilized its popularity, was much quieter. There were only 5 or 6 IDs left. Of course, Brahman was a persistent and persevering girl, and it was summer vacation. After a few seconds, she appeared and said, "Speak. Who are you? Why do you know my idol is participating in this competition?" A little fairy gave an irrelevant answer. "Help when you see injustice." In front of the computer screen, Yanjeka held her chin with one hand and smiled. She deliberately changed her ID because she didn't want people to think of Lu Cheng's girlfriend. Brahman was about to ask again when Eternal Nightfall sent a rolling on the ground and wailing expression. "No broadcast. No broadcast. I'm going to die. I'm going to die." Lying on the bed, Yan Shaoling sniffled and took out something to soothe her wounded heart. It was an admission notice, and the keywords were, Songcheng University School of Arts major in choreography. Looking at the 2 girls rolling on the ground and wailing, Yanjika chuckled and thought to herself, "You can't watch the broadcast, but I have a way. I'm prepared." She first replied to Lu Cheng's message and analyzed the characteristics of Xiongyu's fighting style. Then she entered the Du Chivalry group in Gu Shuang. Shuang Shuang Shuang, are you at the scene? Gu Shuang was the first girl she had mentioned to Lu Cheng. She was the girl who met the scumbag. The scumbag spent Gu Shuang's private money and was too timing. When Gu Shuang came to argue with him, he even tried to beat her, but he was beaten up by Yen Zhika. Gu Shuang was chatting with Xing Jingjing on the high platform. She glanced at the screen from time to time. After seeing her friend's question, she smiled and replied, I'm at the scene. Cuckoo, you're too impatient, aren't you? The first game hasn't started yet. Hee, a girl in love. Even you, who used to be rational and cold, can't escape. Well, when have I ever been cold? Yen Zhika replied with an emoji sitting straight. In my mind, you've always been cold and aloof. You seem to be polite, easy to approach, and good at interpersonal relationships. But in fact, you're only willing to accept a few friends. Right, little fairy? Gu Shuang joked with Lu Cheng's nickname. Yen Zhika had shared this kind of fun with her girlfriends before, but she was teased by them from time to time. Gu Shuang liked this kind of Yen Zhika. If anyone could become the girl's best friend, she wouldn't feel special at all. Yen Zhika spat and didn't respond to the nickname. She emphasized, You said you'd broadcast it for me. Broadcast it with a mobile phone. I haven't forgotten. It's still early. Gu Shuang answered casually. She was about the same height as Yen Zhika. Wearing a black dress, she had shoulder-length curly hair dyed chestnut, and light makeup. Her eyebrows were delicate and filled with faint charm. But she didn't look like a 19-year-old girl. Instead, she looked more like a woman who had been working for several years. Beside her, Xing Jingjing glanced at her, and sighed faintly. Ever since her first love met a scumbag, this best friend of hers who came from an extremely well-off family, no longer believed in love. She changed from her usual innocent and pure self and wandered among men, enjoying being surrounded by them. However, she did not give her true feelings and was neither close nor distant. In her own words, she played in the mortal world and became a playboy princess. Men can touch but women can't? Lu Qing didn't look down on Xiongyu even though he was pretending to be pitiful. It happened every day in the world. If he was really defeated by Xiongyu, he wouldn't be able to face his parents in the future. The lesson he learned before was that he couldn't be complacent. He carefully watched Yen Zhika's analysis and the video provided by her, and had a general understanding of the situation. At this time, since the first two matches were between a professional 9th pin, and an amateur 2 and an amateur 1st pin, the third match was about to begin. Lu Qing put away his mobile phone, tidied up the wrists and trouser legs of his martial arts suit, left his seat and leisurely went to the 6th ring. As expected, he saw Xiongyu and nodded slightly to him as a greeting. Xiongyu and Haning also recognized Lu Cheng, who left a deep impression on them in the video. They found that he was gentle and introverted. He stood there calmly, more like a spectator than a fighter. This recognition made them pale. According to the information, Lu Cheng should be able to reach the peak of body refining soon and show his fierceness. Was he stagnant or had his strength improved beyond imagination? If Lu Cheng had really touched the threshold of Dan's stage, he would be a dark horse in this youth tournament, considering the moves he had shown before. Lu Cheng just smiled at their reaction and turned his attention to the arena, enjoying the rare amateur 1st pin versus amateur 1st pin in the 4th round. Sure enough, no fighter was a fool. Combined with the previous videos and information, it was not difficult to tell that he had made great progress. But my progress will be much greater than you think, a lot. Lu Cheng thought leisurely and took out his mobile phone to chat with Yen Zhika from time to time. 10 minutes later, the third match ended. The referee took a short break and shouted loudly. The 4th match, Lu Cheng versus Xiongyu. Wu Ting had been watching the big screen of the 6th ring. Seeing Lu Cheng enter the arena, she said to Wu Qingui beside her, Dad, I'm going to watch our coach's match. I'm going to cheer for him. Don't go anywhere. Wu Qingui said subconsciously. I won't. Wu Ting shook her father's arm like a spoiled child. I'm at the 6th ring. You can find me later. Wu Qingui originally wanted to follow his daughter, but seeing Wei Renjia who was watching Sun Yixing's match attentively, he swallowed his words and ordered the bodyguards to follow them. Wu Ting cheered. She dragged her sandals and ran to the sixth ring. She cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, "You're so lucky. Come on, Sir Lu." Lu Cheng was confronting Xiongyu, waiting for the beginning of the conversation time. Suddenly he heard the shout. He turned around and responded with a smile. It seems that Zhang Qiufan and the others didn't make it. Only Wu Ting came. After shouting, Wu Ting took out her mobile phone and sent a message in the group. "Hurry up. Team up. Sir Lu's match is about to begin." Gu Shuang also pulled Xing Jingjing to the ring and found a good position to shoot. But she didn't start immediately. Instead, she was still chatting. "Cuckoo, your man looks quite handsome like this. If you ignore his face." "Bah, what do you mean by my man? Can't you speak properly?" Yenjika scolded in her heart and urged, "How can you chat at such a critical moment? Hurry up. Broadcast it for me." "No hurry. What's so good about the conversation time?" Gu Shuang answered casually. "I'll broadcast it for you when the match starts. Now I have to interview you. Cuckoo, how are you feeling now? Are you very excited?" She teased her little fairy who rarely had the chance to flirt with her. Yenjika sent an emoji with a doting smile. "How am I feeling now? I want to strangle you." This was the essence of what she learned from the conversation between Lu Cheng and Kai Zhongming. She started to strangle him when she didn't agree with him. Standing in front of Lu Cheng, Xiongyu quickly went over his strategy. When almost everyone thought he would use guerrilla fighting to avoid the tremor punch and the core force of the ice sect, he would take the initiative to attack at the beginning of the match. Every move would be fatal and catch his opponent off guard. In order to achieve his goal, he had to instill the idea of guerrilla fighting in the conversation time. "The conversation time starts now," the referee announced calmly. Xiongyu immediately opened his mouth and said sincerely, "I watched the video of your match before and found that I was really unlucky. I thought I would be able to defeat the small fish in the next 2 or 3 rounds and advance happily. Who knew I would meet you directly, the big shark?" What an interesting way to put it. Lu Cheng slowly adjusted his body state and replied with a smile. "In a battle, there are hundreds of changes in an instant. It's not uncommon for the weak to defeat the strong. In the winning factor, strength was the main factor, but not the only factor." Xiongyu continued with his plan. He sighed and said, "No matter if it's tremor punch or the core force of the ice sect, I'm very envious of them. If I can master any one of them, other than the few seated fighters in Gaofan, I can do whatever I want." He emphasized that he was both envious and afraid of the tremor punch and the core force of the ice sect. He didn't dare to face them head-on so as to mislead Lu Cheng. In such a long-winded conversation, the referee raised his right hand and announced loudly, "Begin." In the stands, Lu Jisheng and Chao Lele immediately sat up straight, their eyes focused and serious. Gu Shuang hurriedly clicked on the live video option. Wu Ting frowned and complained that her friends were too slow. None of them had arrived yet. As soon as the referee's voice fell, Xiongyu's fearful expression was replaced by a burst of momentum. He stomped on the ground and pounced at Lu Cheng in a seemingly straight and curved manner. At the same time, a low, muffled sound came from within his body, connecting into a mountain-shaking sound, driving his right arm to punch out. Wuji Divine Shattering Punch. In the blink of an eye, Xiongyu was already in front of Lu Cheng. He didn't panic. His abdominal muscles bulged, and his fascias on both sides pulled. His right hand popped out and his 5 fingers opened, piercing the wind and grabbing Xiongyu's wrist. At this moment, Xiongyu's back and back sprung. His right arm tightened, and his left foot kicked out without warning. It went straight for Lu Cheng's ankle. It was deep, fast, accurate, and ruthless. The punch above was a trick to attract attention. The kick below was the essence. The killer move of Wuji Divine Shattering Punch, Earth Dragon Flip. However, as soon as he kicked, Lu Cheng felt a tingling sensation in his ankle. He shifted his center of gravity first, stopped his move, and stepped aside like a ghost. Pseudo-Dan state, absolute reaction. Lu Cheng took a step forward. Before Xiongyu could withdraw his foot, Lu Cheng tightened his muscles and swung his left arm. With the roar of the thundercloud in his mind, he hammered his opponent. Bam! Xiongyu hurriedly blocked, and was hit by the bomb. His body jumped, his qi and blood tumbled, and his muscles and fascias trembled. Just as he was about to use the internal training method to neutralize the shock, Lu Qing quickly adjusted and followed up with his right fist. In the visualization picture, a surging river suddenly froze over. Bam! The two fists collided and the cold current surged. Xiongyu froze as if he had fallen into an ice cave. Lu Cheng's arm shook and cut across his neck. He pulled back and listened to the referee's announcement with a smile. Round 4, Lu Qing wins. Hee hee, it feels good to be a shark once in a while. At this moment, Gu Shuang had just finished the live broadcast and was facing the arena with a smile. Hearing the referee's announcement and seeing the two sides separated, her smile froze. She was stunned for a moment, and then smiled at Yanzhika. It ended so quickly. I just started. Yanzhika was annoyed and amused at the same time. She said bitterly, "Let's break up. I told you to start the live broadcast when we were talking." Nearby, Wu Ting glanced at her companions regretfully. She sighed and muttered to herself, "That's right. This guy is so weak." Chapter 251. In the arena, Xiongyu looked as if he had been trapped naked in a freezer for a long time. His hands and feet were stiff, his lips were pale, and his mind seemed to be frozen by the cold wave. While shivering, he could clearly hear his violent heartbeat. He felt a gush of hot blood flowing to every part of his body, alleviating the coldness that was about to seep into his bones. His abdomen began to wriggle, and his muscles tightened and compressed, creating a slight vibration and heat. Little by little, he recovered from the double effect. Phew. He finally moved his hands and feet, and exhaled a breath of white air. In the martial arts arena with a constant temperature, he actually exhaled a breath of white air that made people feel cold. "Thank you." Lu Qing smiled and saluted. Xiongyu didn't feel angry after his failure. He returned the salute with a wry smile. "I really didn't stand a chance." Facing him was like facing an 8th pin Dan stage fighter. His failure seemed to be justified. After finishing his words, he turned around and walked down the arena. Under the sympathetic gazes of the preparatory members of Wise Man Hall, he returned to Han Ying's side. Without waiting for him to speak, Han Ying said thoughtfully, "Did you notice that the connection between his tremor punch and ice sect core force is very smooth and natural? There are no loopholes?" Before this, they could see from the video that whether it was the tremor punch or ice sect core force, Lu Cheng's preparation time was a little too long, and the connection problem was obvious. However, in the 2 or 3 moves just now, although Lu Cheng still had some preparation time, he was quite close to the reasonable range of normal moves. His connection was tight and left no openings. In terms of battle, this was considered a huge improvement. Yes. Xiongyu confirmed it, but he did not mention it again. His round face showed a bit of bewilderment. "Sistering, don't you think so? Just as my earthworm flip kicked out, he dodged in advance." If it were other professional 9th pin fighters, they might not understand what Xiongyu was trying to say. However, Han Ying had a 7th pin Dan stage brother, so she was familiar with such things. She was shocked and blurted out, "Absolute reaction?" "Yes." Xiongyu nodded solemnly. Han Ying's face darkened. She paced back and forth and gritted her teeth. "I'm going to find my brother and tell him." This was probably a dark horse that had the qualifications to become a seeded player. If his elder brother encountered it and was careless, he might be left with some injuries that would affect his chances of winning the championship later on. Of course, this kind of thing had to be kept a secret. If Zhang Zhutong and the others could suffer a loss because of this, that would be great. When the referee announced the result of the competition, Qi Yunfei, Chen Xiaoxiao and Ma Shi stood up and cheered, ignoring the gazes of others. "Brother Lu Qing is the best." This was Qi Yunfei's suggestion. They had rehearsed this for a long time. Tao Xiaofei jumped up and waved his fist in the air. He looked at Chao Lele and Qiu Hailin with pride and said, "What do you think? I told you Brother Lu is much better than him." Most of the time, the visual estimation of strength and the intuitive feeling of power really required comparison and contrast. Just by looking at battle videos, due to the lack of understanding of the enemy, one would only have a vague sense of the enemy's location, such as crushing bricks and jumping a few meters. Chow Lei finally realized the true strength of her old deskmate. When she saw the martial artist, she thought to be very powerful being defeated so easily. She opened her eyes wide and replied with excitement and surprise. Yes, he really is young Master Lu. Unexpectedly, Lu Cheng's joke to liven up the atmosphere turned out to be true. The deskmate she used to be so familiar with seemed to be so unfamiliar that she could only look at him from afar. Young Master Lu at this time. She saw Lu Cheng leave the arena and asked curiously, "How powerful is Lu Cheng now?" "How do you want me to answer this question? I can't describe it in detail." Jiang Fei scratched his head and said awkwardly. Chow Lei thought for a while and said, Then tell me, which rank can Lu Cheng reach in this youth tournament?" Jiang Fei thought carefully and answered proudly, "Top 32 for sure. If he is lucky, he may even reach the top 16. If he is lucky, he may reach the top 16. Chow Lei repeated in a low voice. Among the martial artists under the age of 26 in the province, Lu Cheng could at least rank in the top 32. The whole province. Qi Fong was enjoying the show. She turned to Lu Jisheng and said, "Did you hear that? Our son can rank in the top 16 in the province." Yes. Lu Jisheng replied with a smile. "Let's hope Cheng is lucky." Cheng Qili was paying attention to Qiu Hailin's reaction. He found that she was not as shocked and excited as Chow Lei and the others, but showed a thoughtful expression. He lowered his voice and asked, "What's wrong? What are you thinking about?" Lu Cheng had consulted Talker about his pursuit of Qiu Hailin. Unfortunately, Little Ming was not omnipotent and knew nothing about the matching of similar characters. He only vaguely suggested that Lu Cheng should take the path of stimulating the brilliance of motherhood and improve himself. Qiu Hailin pulled back her hair and stubbornly showed her forehead. "I just thought of a senior sister. She looks ordinary, but when she is in the arena, she is very powerful, just like Cheng." "Senior sister? What's her name?" Cheng Qili asked casually. Qiu Hailin was busy in the student union and had more or less contact with martial arts competitions. She smiled in a low voice. "Runli. I didn't expect that he would beat Xiongyu in 2 or 3 moves." Gu Shuang was analyzing her feelings and complaining about being wronged. "Isn't that guy very powerful? Why is he just an empty shell?" Beside her, Xing Jingjing replied with a cold expression, "That's right. Lu Cheng is more powerful." "More powerful? How much more powerful?" Gu Shuang was at a loss for a moment. A fight between 2 fighters of the professional 9th pin started unnoticed and ended peacefully. Except for a few fighters from the Wise Martial Arts Hall, no one knew about the existence of Lu Cheng, a top 9th pin fighter. In the 4th round of the competition, the remaining 3 disciples of Gushin Martial Arts School were no longer able to advance, as they were defeated by professional 9th pin fighters one after another. But for them, it was already very good. Other martial arts schools either only had 1 disciple, or none of them entered the 3rd round. In the 5th round of the competition, Lu Cheng drew an amateur first-level fighter, who had once had good luck. He also finished the battle with only 2 moves, which did not attract any more attention. After 5 rounds, there were 79 fighters left, and the number of non-professional fighters was less than 0. From this stage onwards, a double elimination system of 2 matches a day would be implemented. In other words, every fighter would draw 2 opponents each day, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. Whoever lost 2 matches first would be eliminated. The competition would continue until there were only 32 fighters left, which was the number of people in the bonus circle. On the first day, as usual, Lu Cheng drew 2 fighters of the professional 9th pin and defeated them in an unremarkable manner. He didn't enter the broadcast list, nor did he win the applause of the audience due to the lack of excitement and entertainment value. It was as if he had just gone through the motions. On the 2nd day of the double elimination, he finished his morning exercise, put on the navy blue Longhu Club martial arts suit, and slowly ran to the stadium. After yesterday's match, there were only 47 contestants left. Under the rule that the top 32 seeded contestants were not allowed to fight each other, and under the premise that the opponents he had encountered before would definitely avoid him, Luqing felt that he had a good chance of fighting a strong opponent. He entered the stadium and stopped in front of the big screen. Squeezing with the audience, he looked up and saw his name without much effort. Second ring, second match, number 9 seeded fighter, Lu Xuanjin, 23 years old, professional 9th pin. Number 18 seeded fighter, Lu Cheng, 19 years old, professional 9th pin. Number 9 seeded fighter, Lu Xuanjin. Lu Cheng's image appeared in his mind. A young man with white hair. He was a famous fighter of the professional 9th pin in the province, and his supernatural ability was psychokinesis. From the fact that he was a seeded contestant and ranked 9th, it was obvious that his combat strength was extraordinary. My moral quality. Lu Cheng sighed with a smile. Did he really use all his luck on Kuko? Compared to a professional 9th pin fighter with a supernatural ability, I'd rather fight against an 8th pin fighter of the Dan stage. This did not mean that the former was better than the latter. It was just that he had rich experience in challenging 8th pin fighters, but had no experience in fighting against supernatural ability fighters. Monkey from Wenxing School was mainly a fighter with supernatural ability as a supplement, so he could be treated as a fighter in a fight. While recalling the images of Lu Xuanjin in the promotional video, he took out his phone and sent a message to Yenjika. Number 9 seeded fighter. As he sent out these 4 words, Lu Cheng's mood gradually calmed down, and his fighting spirit rose bit by bit. Interesting. It must be interesting to fight against a powerful supernatural ability fighter. Especially in the double elimination. I won't have to go home after one loss. Of course, I don't want to lose no matter what. Chapter 252. A few seconds later, Yenjika's reply came as scheduled. She replied with a crying face emoji. Lu Xuanjin? Yeah. Why do you look like that? Lu Cheng took his phone and walked away from the screen towards the second arena. In the third round of double elimination, there were only 4 arenas left in the arena. Yenjika replied kindly, I know this guy. His supernatural ability is very, very, very troublesome. Even Dan stage mighty ones have a headache. Very troublesome? Even Dan stage mighty ones have a headache? Lu Cheng's mind suddenly flashed with images from the promotional video. He took a deep breath and typed, What's so troublesome? He had spent the past few days quietly comprehending the meaning of withdraw and practicing his martial arts. He wanted to enter Dan's stage as soon as possible, so he didn't study the videos of the seeded players in advance. Only when the results of the draw were out, and he had a specific opponent, would he seriously analyze his opponent. The strength of his psychokinesis is actually not that strong. He can only pick up light things out of thin air. Yenjika crossed her fingers and held her chin. If he uses it to fight with toughness, it won't have a good effect on a professional 9th pin fighter. But there are too many delicate and fragile parts of the human body. For example, the eyes? Lu Cheng frowned. Yes. Although his psychokinesis can't directly gouge out his opponent's eyes or blind him, it's enough to affect his opponent and make him blind for a period of time. In the arena, this kind of battle can easily cause injuries. Yenjika sighed with emotion again with an emoji of crying. The strength of supernatural ability was not only dependent on its type, but also its strength and development. Lu Cheng's supernatural ability of ice and fire sounded good, but its strength was too low. It could only be used to light a cigarette and make a portable air conditioner. It was not powerful at all. Lu Xuanjin's psychokinesis, on the other hand, had been improved step by step from its weak state to its current level. It could obviously affect the development of the battle and the result of the battle. In the battle with strange supernatural abilities, the referees were usually experienced supernatural ability users. That way, they could prevent the situation from worsening. But because of the existence of instantaneous attacks, unless the referees had the ability of prophecy, there was no way to make it flawless. Of course, maliciously injuring the opponent would be punished by the law. Lu Cheng could already imagine the horrifying effect of psychokinesis attacking the eyes from a distance. Stunned expression said, This fighting style is a bit like bullying. That's not all. Yenjika replied. I've seen him pinch his opponent's private part from a distance. F***ck. Lu Qing felt a chill in his crotch and couldn't help but curse. With the strength of Lu Xuanjin's psychokinesis, although it was impossible to cause an explosion, the pain in the balls was not a joke. It was a real pain in the balls. How could they fight like this? In that instant, for the sake of Ku, for the sake of the happiness of the rest of his life, he had the impulse to give up this competition. Seeing Lu Cheng's intense reaction, Yenjika giggled. Luckily, he's still a gentleman. He wouldn't attack a girl's breasts when he's fighting, and he wouldn't do that to a guy unless he had no other choice. Fortunately, it was a single elimination tournament. If he had encountered such an opponent in a life-and-death battle, that would be a real pain in the ass. Lu Cheng replied with an emoji of wiping cold sweat. After scaring her boyfriend, Yenjika snickered. Don't be afraid, young man. Charge forward bravely. I've summarized a few points about his supernatural ability. First, it doesn't have any penetrative power. It's more like an invisible hand that can block. Second, its range is limited. It has almost no effect beyond 15 meters. The closer it is, the stronger the psychokinesis becomes. Third, his use of psychokinesis is like your supernatural ability of a lighter. It requires a trigger action, and there's a possibility of prediction. In fact, without the trigger action, a dance stage mighty one's absolute reaction can also detect it. However, psychokinesis is instantaneous, and the speed of transmission is said to be close to the speed of light. If there's no trigger action, even if you can sense it, you can't avoid it. Lu Cheng was stunned. After a long time he said, Ku, how do you know so much? Humph, I've studied all the videos of the 12-seeded players. Yenjika raised her head and replied with an emoji of arrogance. She didn't need to participate in the competition, so why did she put in so much effort? Lu Qing felt warm in his heart. Ku, you're so nice. Yenjika blushed at his sudden words. A smile appeared on her face as she hurriedly reprimanded him. Call me Coach Yen. Yes, yes, yes. Coach Yen is the best. Lu Qing laughed and waved to his parents and Fatty Jiang. He found a place to sit down and watch the videos that Yenjika had selected. He communicated with her nervously and hurriedly. Lu Xuanjin sat cross-legged in the small, empty room of the seated players' lounge. It was dark all around and there was no sound. In this deathly silent environment, the external sensations gradually faded. He could more clearly grasp his psychokinesis and see the corresponding changes in his body. The only fuzzy part was his brain. Because his psychokinesis was too strong, it affected his spirit. Until now, he had not been able to conceal spirit and qi and enter meditation. He could only rely on this extreme environment to practice. This was why he couldn't enter the dance stage. Most of the time, others saw him as a supernatural ability user, not a fighter. Suddenly he vaguely sensed something. He opened his eyes, stood up, and walked to the entrance. He opened the two doors that separated the space. Outside the door, a slender woman was approaching. When she saw Lu Xuanjin, she smiled and said, Mr. Lu, what a coincidence. Your opponent is out. Number 18 Lu Cheng. Number 18 Lu Cheng. Lu Xuanjin read the name silently. He found it strange, but his expression didn't change at all. He smiled politely and said, Thank you. I have to check his information. Don't bother. I've collected it for you, including the highlights of his matches in the past few days. The slender woman said dutifully. Many fighters had not fought in public for 1 or 2 months in order to prepare for the youth tournament. All the previous videos could only be used as a reference and couldn't be used to accurately judge the specific strength of the opponent. After all, people grow. Only by combining the battles in the past few days could one have a complete understanding of the opponent. Thank you. Lu Xuanjin said politely and sat in front of the computer. He took the USB flash drive from the woman and began to watch from the beginning. As he watched, his expression gradually became serious. When he saw Lu Cheng's recent matches, he couldn't hide the seriousness on his face. Crushing. He muttered to himself and made an evaluation. Although he still couldn't rely on this kind of intense battle to figure out the other party's background, it was obvious that in just a short 2 months, he had made a jaw-dropping improvement. Compared to the top geniuses like Peng Liyun and Ren Li, this kind of growth speed couldn't be inferior at all. Fortunately, if the youth tournament was delayed 1 year later, the number 1 seed would have been replaced. Lu Xuanjin had made a name for himself with his supernatural ability, but he didn't become arrogant because he had suffered losses before. He knew very well that supernatural ability users were indeed strong in many aspects, but they were also weak in many aspects. Unlike dance stage fighters, supernatural ability users were the type that was most likely to fail miserably. Of course, if one's supernatural ability reached a higher level, it would be a different story. In the stands, Lu Cheng's mother, Qifeng, asked puzzledly, "What does the number 9 seed mean?" Tao Xiaofei was a little worried and didn't have the mood to answer. Only Fatty Jiang was still cheerful and said, "Auntie, the seeded fighters are those who are most likely to win this tournament. The smaller the number, the stronger the strength, and the greater the hope." He tried to explain in a way that was easy for middle-aged and old people to understand. "So this Lu Xuanjin is the 9th strongest fighter in the youth tournament?" Qifeng asked in surprise, thinking of the 18 heroes of Sui and Tang dynasties. In the whole province, it was amazing to be in the top 10 of all the fighters under the age of 26. Jiang Fei thought for a while and said, "That's right. Then, does Cheng have a high chance of winning?" Qifeng asked worriedly with a simple comparison view, which was what Chao Lele and Qi Yunfei were thinking. Isn't this match very dangerous? Would he lose? Feeling that he was the focus of attention, Jiang Fei twisted his body uncomfortably and coughed twice. "It's okay if he loses. This is a double elimination system, which means he has to lose 2 rounds to be eliminated. Cheng still has a high chance of entering the top 32. He couldn't possibly draw another seeded fighter in the next round, right?" "Well." Qifeng pulled Lu Jisheng's sleeve and whispered, "You know how to surf the internet, right? Let's see what Lu Xuanjin is like." Okay. Lu Jisheng had this idea a long time ago. Under the guidance of Qi Yunfei, he searched step by step. Qiu Hailin and Chao Lele also began to do the same. However, the more they watched Lu Xuanjin's battle video, the more silent they became. The more they watched, the more frightened they became. Ahahaha, finally there's a broadcast this time. Yan Xiaoling refreshed the list and excitedly posted, "It's against the 9th seeded fighter. Ho ho ho, it's against the 9th seeded fighter." Unparalleled Dragon King had sharp eyes. "You don't know what a seeded fighter is, right?" "Haha, how would I know?" Eternal Nightfall, Yan Xiaoling didn't hide it. Unparalleled Dragon King briefly explained the meaning of a seeded fighter. In the end he said, "If it's the 8th or 10th seeded fighter, I think Lu Qing will win." After more than 2 months, with his speed of improvement, he should have touched the threshold of the Dan stage. Plus, he is more familiar with Tremor Punch and Ice Sect Force, and he has more experience. It's not impossible for him to beat a normal 8th pin fighter of the Dan stage. But this Lu Xuanjin's supernatural ability is very difficult to deal with. It's his first time encountering him. Yan Xiaoling was silent for a moment before replying. "Anyway, I think my Lu Qing will win." A woman's sixth sense. "I believe it too. I have it too." Brahman popped up. Unparalleled Dragon King said, "Why are you 2 little brats calling me a woman? I'm an adult." Yan Xiaoling followed suit. "But Little Nightfall, your picture and your voice betrayed you. You're just a primary school kid." Brahman quickly changed the topic. It seemed that they wouldn't be able to go back until the competition started. After watching the video, Lu Qing had a rudimentary understanding of Lu Xuanjin's fighting style. He looked at the second arena. The winner of the first round was clear and would soon be over. The broadcasting equipment had been set up for the second round. "It's about to start." Lu Qing sent a message to Yenjika. Then he stood up and stretched his arms and legs. The fighting style of a supernatural ability user was indeed different from that of a normal fighter. He couldn't rely on his experience to master it. Yenjika quickly replied with a voice message. Ching Ching, come on. Lu Qing smiled and stretched his neck. He quickly typed, how can I cheer for such a powerful opponent in such an ordinary way? Then how about singing? Yenjika gritted her teeth and asked hesitantly. We've been together for so long, shouldn't we change the way we cheer for each other? Lu Qing teased the girl to ease his mood. For example, darling. No. Rogue. Cheeky. Yenjika typed quickly. Her face was red with embarrassment and annoyance. How embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. Cheng is such a jerk. At this moment, a few rows above him, Zhang Zhutong stood leisurely with his hands in his pockets. Beside him was a beautiful female companion. Do you want to watch the next round? His female companion asked, bored. Zhang Zhutong laughed in a low voice. Yes, Lu Xuanjin hasn't participated in any competition for almost 3 months. His previous opponents were not strong, so no one could see how much his supernatural ability has improved. His opponent this round is not weak, so it should be able to make him reveal something. Look, Han Jifei, Qiulin, and the others are also here. He leisurely waved to Han Jifei and the others not far away, as if he were the owner of this place. Han Jifei ignored his gesture, touched the scar on his face, and asked Haning and Xiongyu, is this Lu Qing? Yes. Haning nodded heavily. Okay. Sing a song to cheer for me. After teasing Yenjika for a while, Lu Qing still couldn't make her call him darling, but he was still in a good mood. In order to not be upset or painful later, and still have this kind of happiness, I can't take it lightly. Then let's do our best. He stepped forward and walked to the second arena. In less than 2 minutes, he heard the referee say, the second round, Lu Xuanjin versus Lu Qing. Lu Qing took out his phone and was about to hand it to the competition supervisor when he saw a message. "'Cause song?" He unlocked the phone with a smile, put the phone to his ear, and clicked on the voice message. Kiss kiss. Come on. Yenjika's voice trembled with shyness and nervousness. As soon as she sent the message, she buried her face in the pillow. Chung is such a bad guy. Kiss. Are you a customer service officer on Taba? Lu Qing chuckled. His heart was filled with strength. This is what I want to protect. Yaya, Sir Lu is on the stage. Wu Ting looked at the second arena and cheered. Wei Renjia didn't hear what she was shouting, but now there were only 4 arenas left. He subconsciously looked over and easily found a familiar figure standing there. Lu Qing? How many rounds has it been? He hasn't been eliminated yet. Chapter 253. Although Wei Renjia was a layman in martial arts, he was by no means a fool since he had made it to where he was today. Besides, he had learned a lot in the past 6 months. Seeing Lu Qing still standing in the arena on the second day of the double elimination competition, he instinctively made a judgment. This kid is not simple. He is at least a professional 9th pin fighter, and not an ordinary one. Not to mention the first 5 rounds of matches. Just looking at the results of the first day of double elimination, one could come to this conclusion. Yesterday morning, there were 39 matches and 39 losers. In the afternoon, there were also 39 matches, and 32 of the 39 losers accumulated to the second round and were eliminated. What did this mean? It meant that those without real skills had been completely squeezed out. Wei Renjia's mouth was half open, and his mind was full of thoughts. Finally, he put away his slightly lost expression and ordered in a low voice, Goldie, get me the information on Lu Qing. Quickly, as soon as possible. Before Goldie could do anything, Wu Qinggui had already taken out his mobile phone, found the information in his collection, and handed it over. After finding out from his daughter that their new coach was unexpectedly strong, as a qualified father, he had already investigated Lu Qing's situation thoroughly. However, he didn't dare to take the initiative to ask because he couldn't figure out Wei Renjia's attitude. At this moment, the information he collected finally came in handy. Wei Renjia took it and skimmed through it quickly. The more he read, the more shocked he became. When he read the words, less than a year of martial arts practice, he couldn't help but pull at the knot of his tie. His neck was strangled, and he seemed to have difficulty breathing. Beside him, Wu Tingkai didn't notice his reaction. She joined Zhang Qiufan and other friends and sat side by side in the seats closest to the second arena. Next to them were Xing Jingjing and Gu Shuang. In the broadcasting room of Xing Province Satellite TV, the host asked the guest commentator, "Teacher Yu, I've read Lu Cheng's profile and found that this young man is extraordinary. He started practicing martial arts as soon as he entered university, and in less than a year, he's already at the top of the professional ninth pin. His future is limitless, limitless. He's a rising martial arts star in our province. How likely do you think he is to defeat Lu Xuanjin?" Yu Hong was the senior vice principal of the police academy in Xing Province. He was in the dance stage at the inhuman level. He laughed and said, "It's hard to say. For now, I can't see how much progress this kid has made compared to 2 months ago. Lu Xuanjin's supernatural ability is very interesting. If you haven't reached the dance stage, you won't be able to practice absolute reaction. If you encounter him, you'll basically have no chance. Even if you're in the 8th pin dance stage, you'll be in danger if you make a mistake." After watching the highlights of Lu Cheng's previous matches, he had seen more hidden things than Lu Xuanjin, Haning and Xiongyu. It was not easy for him to make a judgment, so he decided to analyze Lu Xuanjin's supernatural ability perfunctorily. Yan Zhika's clear voice echoed in his ears. Lu Qing walked into the ring and stood opposite Lu Xuanjin. His fighting will accumulated in his heart, and his spirit penetrated his body. The referee did not waste any time and announced in a clear voice, "Conversation time starts now." Lu Qing looked at the teenager and smiled slightly. "To be honest, this is the first time I've fought with a fighter with supernatural ability. I'm a little nervous." These were his heartfelt words, but not all of them. He wanted to create an image to paralyze Lu Xuanjin and create opportunities for himself to use his next moves. His strategy was to beat the slow with speed, to attack the weak with one's strong points. No matter how strong Lu Xuanjin's psychokinesis was, it showed no signs of strengthening his body. In other words, his reaction, speed and agility were all at the level of a normal professional ninth pin fighter. Once he couldn't keep up with his own movements, how effective could his psychokinesis be? A weapon that couldn't hit the enemy was useless no matter how strong it was. The only problem was that under normal circumstances, a professional ninth pin fighter should be able to keep up with the movements of an 8th pin fighter in the dance stage. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to challenge Wei Xingtian and Zhou Zhengquan. Lu Xuanjin had a pair of deep eyes that seemed to be able to drown others. He smiled back. "This is also the first time I've met a professional ninth pin fighter who has mastered Tremor Punch and the core force of the Ice Sect. No, you should be quite close to the dance stage, so I won't hold back." Not holding back meant that he would not deliberately avoid the sensitive parts. Hearing this, Lu Qing felt a chill between his legs again. He didn't know if Lu Xuanjin was bluffing to make him unable to use his full strength, or if he really wanted to fight to the death. He took a breath and all kinds of emotions began to settle down. His will was strong, and the source of his strength was awakened. Since this was the case, let's go all out. The two of them, each with their own thoughts, stopped talking and let the time pass by. The referee raised his right hand and waved it down under the nervous gazes of Qi Feng, Chao Lele and the others. "Begin." While the voice was still echoing, Lu Cheng's qi, blood, force, spirit and other physical and non-physical senses all shrank and condensed into a Dan that was bigger than a dot and smaller than a thumb. Force concentration and Dan's stage burst out. He didn't hold back at the beginning. Boom. The mass of essence, qi, spirit, and will expanded rapidly and exploded violently. The surrounding stars were flung out and turned into a spiral force that surged violently into Lu Cheng's feet. Bam! The green bricks exploded. Lu Cheng was like a fierce eagle. Using distance reduction, he closed the distance between them in the blink of an eye and pounced on Lu Xuanjin. Facing such an explosive attack, Lu Xuanjin didn't panic. He stretched out his hands and pulled backward. As soon as Lu Cheng sensed it, he discovered that there was an invisible rope tied around his wrists, pulling him forward. Under normal circumstances, this kind of pull wouldn't affect him at all, but at this moment, he was pouncing forward ferociously. 4 ounces could lift 1,000 pounds. He was like a boulder that had been pried open and lost his balance. He couldn't stop and staggered forward. Lu Xuanjin dodged sideways. His eyes were dark and shimmering. His right hand moved quickly. Lu Cheng was about to use mercurial balance to regain his balance when his left foot tripped over an invisible obstacle. His rhythm was completely disrupted and he was on the verge of falling. This time it wasn't a direct attack. He couldn't use absolute reaction. Lu Xuanjin's expression didn't change. He clenched his hands into fists and pounded inward. He seized the opportunity to attack Lu Cheng's temples with psychokinesis. These were the vital points of the human body. Even if his psychokinesis wasn't enough, it was enough to make his opponent dizzy and lose his ability temporarily. At this moment, Lu Cheng took a deep breath. All the qi, blood and force in his body condensed at his dantian. This allowed him to stand steadily with his waist lowered and no longer staggered. As soon as he steadied himself, he felt the sharp pain in his temples. He shrunk his neck like a turtle retracting its head. Bam! Lu Cheng, who reacted in time, still couldn't completely avoid the attack. The invisible fist hit the edge of his skull. For a moment, he saw stars and felt annoyed. He had underestimated Lu Xuanjin in the stands. Zhang Zhutong muttered to himself in surprise, "That's right. He hasn't completely entered the Dan stage yet. And he can make 2 consecutive bursts? Is this the so-called abnormal physical strength?" His female companion was confused. She didn't understand what he was talking about. Zhang Zhutong put away his surprise and smiled solemnly. "Nothing. I didn't expect Lu Xuanjin's supernatural ability to improve so much. He didn't even need to touch his body to become an invisible barrier." To him, this was much more threatening than Lu Cheng's 2 consecutive bursts. Han Zhifei touched the scar on his face again. He said to Han Ning and Xiongyu thoughtfully, "He's really something. This should be Lu Cheng's limit. Today's match will be very difficult for him." Xiongyu sighed. In the arena, the qi, blood and force in Lu Cheng's dantian exploded again and gushed out. Bang! He was like a detonated cannonball, shooting toward Lu Xuanjin. No, not where Lu Xuanjin was standing, but a few meters away from him. Lu Xuanjin couldn't keep up with Lu Cheng's explosive attack. When Lu Cheng landed, he raised his hands and tried to gouge his opponent's eyes. At this moment, Lu Cheng's explosive strength and surging qi and blood contracted again. He made another force concentration. Triple bursts. Xiongyu opened his mouth slightly. Boom. Lu Cheng took advantage of the midway turnaround and the more turbulent outburst to change his direction, making Lu Xuanjin's psychokinesis miss. It wasn't because he predicted his opponent's attack, but because he had planned to do so. Relying on the explosive strength of the pseudo-Dan stage, he was going to fight like never before. Only in this way could Lu Xuanjin, a professional ninth pin fighter, not be able to keep up with his movements and lock onto him. A few meters was nothing to the explosive strength of the Dan stage. In the blink of an eye, Lu Cheng was in front of Lu Xuanjin. He raised his right hand and tightened his muscles. Lu Xuanjin had rich experience in fighting with Dan stage fighters. His eyes were calm. His left hand grasped upward and used invisible peach stealing. His right hand pressed forward and used immortal shows the way. He was fighting an attack with an attack, making the first move in an instant. But all of a sudden, his vision blurred and he lost sight of Lu Cheng. "This quadruple bursts!" Xiongyu exclaimed in shock. Just as Lu Xuanjin's hands were about to move, Lu Cheng finished the process of force concentration and eruption. He bounced his back and moved to the back of his opponent at an unimaginable speed. This was not a premonition, but a preparation to make Lu Xuanjin unable to keep up with his movements. This was the essence of guerrilla fighting. At this moment, his right arm was still in the air and his muscles tightened again. Lu Cheng swung his arm and used Thunder Roar Zen. Lu Xuanjin didn't even have the chance to turn around, let alone attack his opponent's weak point. He only had time to turn his body sideways and wrap his arm with psychokinesis to block the attack. Bang! The bomb exploded and the impact swept across. Lu Xuanjin's weak psychokinesis was shattered and his body was also affected. His joints and fascia were trembling, and he couldn't use his strength. At this moment, Lu Cheng didn't attack first. Instead, he took a breath and gathered his qi, blood, spirit, and force to form the Dan again. Quintuple bursts. It wasn't Xiongyu who blurted out, but Han Zhifei and Zhang Zhutong. Boom. The force in Lu Cheng's body surged. He swayed his center of gravity and flashed away from Lu Xuanjin's back. Lu Xuanjin, who was still in shock, clenched his fist without hesitation and ignited his psychokinesis for the last and strongest counterattack. Whoosh! 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 The gravel on the ground flew toward Lu Cheng, aiming at his eyes, temples, nose bridge, dantian, and other vital points. At the same time, the invisible force danced wildly like a rope swinging in the air. However, all of this fell into the air. Lu Cheng had already rushed out of this range with the power of the dance stage explosion. He had a deep impression of Lu Xuanjin's psychokinesis explosions that turned the tables several times. Even so, a piece of cloth had been torn from his trousers, making him feel cold. Lu Cheng took a deep breath as soon as his feet touched the ground. The surging qi and blood flowed back again, forming the Dan again and exploding again. Boom. The black bricks exploded. He pounced on his enemy like a wolf or a tiger, swinging his arms and punching wildly. Lu Xuanjin didn't have time to react, and fell to the ground softly. Xiongyu stood there in a daze and muttered to himself, sextuple bursts. You're not even in the Dan stage yet, buddy, are you still a damn human? Chapter 254. Lu Xuanjin detonated his psychokinesis, and was hit by Thunder Zen 3 times. Due to his physique as a professional ninth pin, and the fact that he couldn't visualize or use the internal training method to weaken the effect, he collapsed to the ground. His head was buzzing and he felt soft all around him. He was so disgusted that he broke out in cold sweat, and wanted to vomit. Seeing his body trembling and twitching from time to time, the referee closed his eyes and nodded to Lu Cheng with a kind face. Then he raised his right hand and announced the result loudly. Lu Cheng wins the second round. With a boom, the whole audience was in an uproar. Most of the audience paid attention to this match because of the seated player, and were full of expectations for Lu Xuanjin's psychokinesis. They didn't expect such an unexpected result. An ordinary professional ninth pin fighter, who didn't stand out before, showed an amazing burst of power. It took him less than a minute to end the match and defeat the seated player. Lu Cheng? Who is he? Why is he so powerful? Similar thoughts echoed in the minds of many audience members, making them eager to know more about this young fighter. Unlike the audience in front of the TV and computer screens who had already heard the commentator's introduction, they could only take out their mobile phones and quickly type on the keyboard. This was the so-called artificial intelligence. Yes, artificial intelligence plus intelligence. For a moment, except for the uproar, there were not many cheers and applause in the audience. He won just like that. Lu Cheng's mother, Qifang, was the kind of person who just watched the fun. On one hand, she was happy that her son seemed to have won the seated player, but on the other hand, she was surprised that her son was so fast and agile. Yes, Jiang Fei, Qing Qili and Tao Xiaofei all answered in a daze. It wasn't that they didn't imagine Lu Cheng would win, but they didn't expect him to win so quickly and so easily. Cheng's strength is so strong that it's beyond our imagination again. When Lu Xuanjin's opponent needed to cover his eyes to protect his crotch and still failed inexplicably, those who watched Lu Xuanjin's battle videos would feel their hair stand on end. However, if Lu Xuanjin fell into a disadvantageous position, and was defeated by his opponent in one fell swoop, it would be difficult for the ordinary audience to see how much the invisible psychokinesis had played in the battle. It would also be difficult for them to appreciate the danger of walking on a tightrope in the process. As a result, they would feel that Lu Xuanjin had failed to put up any resistance at the beginning of the battle, and allowed his opponent to win easily. Isn't it said that the seated player is the favorite to win the championship? Lu Cheng's father, Lu Jisheng, couldn't help feeling puzzled at the same time. Brother Lu Cheng is better. He is the favorite to win the championship. Qi Yunfei shouted excitedly, looking at the big screen. Beside her, Ma Xi and Chen Xiaoxiao also nodded in agreement. In the previous match, Lu Cheng's pouncing and moving speed were so fast that the unprepared close-range camera couldn't follow his movements. Therefore, the broadcast on the big screen was changed to a distant view, so the audience could only see the whole picture but not the details. It was not much different from directly staring at the arena. At this moment, the close-up view was replayed in slow motion. Only then did Qi Yunfei and the other girls realize that after Lu Cheng's dance stage burst, his muscles bulged and his fascia protruded. His entire person seemed to have grown a little taller, making people feel that he was majestic, full of strength, and manly. Yes, manly. The favorite to win the championship. Chow Lele covered her mouth and whispered to herself. Xiao Hailin showed both disbelief and inexplicable excitement at the same time. Sextuple explosion. Zhang Zhudong's hands in his pockets were clenched into fists. He subconsciously turned around and looked at Han Jifei, Qiu Lin, and the other top 5 seeded players. He saw the same shock in their eyes. Compared to professional 8th pin, professional 7th pin dance stage didn't have much of a transformation. However, those who could pass the ranking event and rise among the professional 8th pin must have improved in some aspects. For example, they had mastered a certain force, could complete sextuple explosion, sextuple explosion, sextuple explosion, and octuple explosion, had better control of the body, could slightly influence the details of the body, and improved strength, agility, and speed after breaking the limits of the human body. All in all, they were only shocked and surprised by Lu Cheng's sextuple explosion. They didn't expect a guy who hadn't completely stepped into the dance stage to be able to do this. They weren't particularly afraid of this dark horse. It was the same for the supernatural fighters whose combat strength was equal to professional 7th pin. Of course, with their insight, it wasn't difficult to see some facts. There was only one thought in their minds. If they were going to meet Lu Cheng in the knockout, they'd better do it as soon as possible. Lu Cheng was infinitely close to the dance stage. If they gave him a few more opportunities to practice, he might really enter the professional 8th pin. If they didn't take advantage of the fact that he was still weak, what were they waiting for? More importantly, his abnormal physical strength was directly exposed. With the tight schedule, the more they fought, the more obvious his advantage would be. What a monster! Zhang Zhutong's glamorous female companion looked around, not understanding their reactions. She only understood that the young fighter standing in the arena seemed to be very strong, and could be called a strong opponent. Sextuple explosion? Gu Shuang had a standard cherry mouth, but it was now in an O shape. Although she had only trained to strengthen her body and didn't walk the path of martial arts, among her close friends, Yan Zheka and Xing Jingjing were closely related to martial arts. She was more or less influenced and knew a lot about martial arts. Naturally, she knew what the explosion of the dance stage was, and what several explosions were. Most professional 8th pin dance stage fighters couldn't do sextuple explosion, right? Xing Jingjing pursed her lips and nodded after a long time. Yes. That's very strong. Gu Shuang sighed and then shivered. 'Cause man is so strong. Sister Jingjing, how are you going to educate him? Don't be the one to be taught a lesson. Xing Jingjing answered with a cold face. My supernatural ability is different from Lu Xuanjin's. Yan Zheka hugged her computer and curled up on the bed, watching the match attentively. When she found that Lu Cheng had completed the initial stage of force concentration, she opened her mouth and was stunned at first. Then she snorted with both anger and happiness. You didn't tell me. Humph, that idiot Cheng wants to surprise me again. What a surprise! As she continued watching, the worry in her heart faded little by little. Her eyes widened little by little, shining like stars. Sextuple explosion. She whispered to herself, proud and happy. At this moment her cell phone rang. She picked it up and saw that it was a message from Li Liantong. This made her feel both angry and amused. She replied with the word "get lost," and secretly scolded Dirty Tong for being so dirty. In Lu Cheng's fan forum, the first to post was unexpectedly unparalleled Dragon King. He tagged Eternal Nightfall, Brahmin and Wonton Seller, who was going to be in the 3rd year of high school. It's still that familiar Lu Cheng. His strength has improved so fast that it's unbelievable. He creates miracles again and again. This reminds me of the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. It also makes me believe that he has a high chance of becoming a mighty one with physical invulnerability. Haha, when my idol joins the Longhu Club, it will be perfect. Brahmin still hadn't given up on her dream. Eternal Nightfall laughed with her arms akimbo. Ha 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 ha. How could my eyes be wrong? Also, congratulations on getting a new skill, woman's intuition. Unparalleled Dragon King said with a funny face. Since the match was broadcasted by Xing Province Satellite TV, they saw the number of followers start to increase after a long pause. After the referee announced the result, Lu Qing took a deep look at Lu Xuanjin, who was trembling and retching on the ground. Without saying anything, he turned around and walked out of the arena. Originally, he had agreed not to rely on the Jindan this time, and to weigh his own strength. However, in the end he still borrowed it a little. Otherwise, he would only be able to complete the quintuple explosion, which might not be so easy in the end. After understanding why he was fighting and finding the source of his strength, he tempered and improved his martial arts will, which made his spirit improve by leaps and bounds. As for his physical strength, because he had been using the Jindan to train himself to the limit, he was much stronger than other martial artists of the same level. Even without the Jindan, he could still be considered a freak. With these two things, he could complete the quadruple explosion without the Jindan even though he hadn't completely entered the Dan stage. Yes, the quadruple explosion. This was the number he estimated. After that, he would have to rely on the Jindan to recover his strength, and combine it with his spirit to continue the explosion. However, in the process of actually trying it, Lu Qing found that the force concentration completed by rotating and balancing had many mysteries. It didn't put a heavy burden on the body, which was why he could complete the quintuple explosion. Many factors led to the scene just now. In the Xing Province TV broadcast room, the host couldn't help but exclaim, "Awesome! I haven't seen anyone who can beat Lu Xuanjin so easily in the past few years. Awesome! We have a successor in the martial arts world of Xing Province." Beside him, Yu Hong shook his head and smiled. Not easy, not easy. Who dared to say that the quadruple explosion was easy? This old man will give you one. Yes, yes, yes. But no matter what, it's really awesome and miraculous. The host replied excitedly. Let's connect to the reporter in front and watch her interview Lu Qing live. Wei Renjie watched in a daze. After a long time, he came back to his senses and found that Lu Qing was stopped by the reporter. He thought of something and said to Wu Ting with a smile. Ting Ting, aren't you going to congratulate your coach? Yeah. Wu Ting jumped up excitedly and rushed over with Zhang Qiufan and other friends. Wei Renjie tidied his clothes and followed behind them. At this moment, he forgot about Sun Yixing who was still in a daze beside him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.